Chapter 240. Chiyu looked at Snow Girl with some surprise, because he recognized the appearance of this plant. It was the appearance of the emerald fruit plant. Even though everything displayed on the screen was computer-generated, it was still quite impressive that the Snow Lady was able to remember what it looked like. The green plant finally broke out of the water, but the constantly condensing crystal green light spots did not stop. The green light flashed, and a crystal-clear fruit, like emerald, grew on the plant above the water surface. Perhaps because it was a little heavy, it was trembling slightly at this time. A few drops of water slid down the fruit to the water surface, causing some ripples on the emerald surface. The elegant singing became softer and softer. Suddenly, a green light fell from the sky and completely enveloped the dark green fruit. Spots of green light burst out in all directions, making the already visually impactful scene even more dazzling. Xiao Lu, wrapped in a green dress, with her black hair fluttering, descended from the sky along with the emerald light. Her big eyes were full of surprise and curiosity, and her green dress fluttered in the wind. She was as moving as a fairy from the ninth heaven. She gently stroked the jade-like fruit. The fruit seemed to have sensed her aura and trembled slightly. It actually struggled up from the stem and slowly rose around Xiao Lu's delicate body. Xiao Lu's singing changed, and the original elegant voice was full of joy. She raised her hand. Her delicate body rotated with the emerald fruit, and the clear singing became moving again. The beautiful sound of the chords also set off the sound of the guzheng at this time, pushing the atmosphere to the peak. The ninth heaven fairy descends to the earth to search for the emerald by the Jade Lake. The secular world is like a shadow. The essence of heaven and earth makes me feel pity. The scene finally ended. At the moment when Xiao Lu, who had transformed into the ninth heaven fairy, held the emerald high above her head, the emerald light swept the entire scene in an instant, and everything disappeared. In the entire promotional video, there was not a word of advertising, not even the name of the product appeared. However, the breathtaking scene, Xiao Lu's moving, beautiful face, the beautiful singing, and the dazzling scene all left a very deep impression on the reporters present. However, this was only the beginning of their shock. The screen went dark for a moment, and then the entire scene changed again. With a loud crack, a purple lightning flashed in the dark sky. The entire scene was illuminated by the purple light. The purple mountains, the purple water, and the purple sun made everything seem a little gloomy. A girl in purple armor flew out from the purple castle at the peak of the purple mountain. Her black hair fluttered, and her face revealed a panicked expression. It was still Xiao Lu. However, in her purple armor, her appearance and aura were completely different from before. Above the ancient purple castle, a gigantic purple shadow rose up. It was in the form of a demon, and it seemed to cover the sky and earth as it chased after Xiao Lu, feeling the evil atmosphere. All the reporters couldn't help but feel nervous. Although they knew that it was just a promotional video, they couldn't help but be immersed in the dazzling scene. The panicked Xiao Lu saw that the gigantic demon shadow was about to catch up with her. The tense music was replaced by a pipa solo, and the song Ambush from 10 Sides made the whole scene even more frightening. In the scene, Xiao Lu couldn't escape the pursuit of the purple shadow after all. The demonic aura finally enveloped her body. The painful expression made her look up to the sky and let out a moving moan. As if she had decided on something, her eyes were full of determination. A dazzling light instantly bloomed from Xiao Lu's body, forcing the demon to retreat temporarily. Her beautiful eyes revealed a mournful light. The music suddenly changed from the previous murderous aura to a sad movement. Xiao Lu's whole body bloomed with purple light as she sang sorrowfully. The purple demon of the purple castle of the purple mountain appears, and the world is destroyed by the purple demon. Purple crystal, lend me the power to destroy the demon, and I am willing to repay you with my body. The purple crystal, like a blooming flower, constantly emitted from below Xiao Lu's body. The purple crystal looked so crystal clear that the demon shadow, was forced to be unable to approach it. At this moment, the purple crystal, which seemed to have been peeled off layer by layer, a crystal-clear purple fruit floated up and floated in front of Xiao Lu. The sadness in Xiao Lu's eyes became even more intense. The purple fruit suddenly turned into a purple light and entered her small cherry mouth. In an instant, the purple light shone as if it covered the sky and earth and swallowed Xiao Lu's delicate body. The demon in the sky was also completely destroyed in this surging purple light. The purple light filled the entire screen, and the second segment was over. If the overall effect of the green color from before had already filled the reporters' hearts with admiration, then the appearance of the purple demon of the purple mountain in the purple castle surprised them even more. Oh my God! Such a scene and Xiao Lu's acting were absolutely outstanding, but it gave them the feeling that it did not look like a promotional video, but more like a blockbuster movie. To be able to shoot the previous two promotional videos, the investment needed to be huge, not to mention the participation of a popular singer like Xiao Lu. Did this Kirin group spend so much just to sell fruits? At this time, the emotions of the reporters were completely aroused. However, the promotional video was not over yet. The previous purple scene made people nervous, but the scene in front of them made the reporters feel much more relaxed. Blue sky, white clouds. The blue sky was as clear as a transparent mirror, and a few white clouds floated gently in the blue sky. The music turned into the sound of a flute, and the moving and beautiful sound soothed everyone's nerves. A blue light suddenly lit up in the center of the entire picture, and the area covered by the blue light was getting larger and larger. When everyone could see it clearly, they were surprised to find that it turned out to be a diamond-shaped sapphire. The sapphire was still constantly zooming in, or rather, the camera was constantly approaching. As it got closer, the crystal light reflected by the cut surfaces on the sapphire could be seen even more clearly. The sapphire was magnified almost infinitely, until the picture stopped on its smooth surface. A blue figure danced on the picture, in a simple blue dress wrapped around that moving and delicate body. It was still Xiao Lu, but it was different from the ethereal fairy of the Emerald World and the sad female warrior of the Amethyst World. Now, in the picture, it was a happy girl, full of a lively aura, dancing cheerfully on the surface of the sapphire. A blue light constantly brought up a flame on her right hand, followed by a little blue light. Because her movements were so fast, no one could see clearly what the blue light in her hand was. With the accompaniment of the flute, Xiao Lu danced and sang softly, "The blue sky is the quilt, white clouds as a companion, sapphire, you will always be my sweetheart." With a moving smile, Xiao Lu's delicate body turned in place. The dance stopped. She held her right hand in front of her, and the blue light gradually converged. The crystal sapphire fruit appeared in her palm, and she put it in front of her. Xiao Lu kissed the sapphire fruit playfully, and the blue light bloomed. The picture kept zooming in again, and when the light of the sapphire devoured the camera, all the promotional videos were finally over. It was a huge image of Kirin. The black and silver colors intertwined, leaving a deep impression on people. Amidst the exclamations, the lights in the auditorium were turned on again. At this time, the reporters realized that the picture just now was so shocking that they forgot to take photos or video. For a time, annoyed voices sounded continuously. Yuan smiled slightly. Although it was not the first time she had seen this promotional video, she was more shocked every time she watched it. Dear reporters, you don't have to regret not taking a picture of the promotional video just now. Every reporter present today is a guest of Kirin Group. We have prepared a small gift. After the banquet, we will give it to every guest present today, including a product produced by our company and a CD of the previous promotional video. A product wasn't just a fruit. Although it was a good thing to have the promotional video CD just now, this Kirin Group was too stingy. It was just a fruit. If it weren't for Yu Guan's very appropriate words, she was afraid that it would immediately arouse the dissatisfaction of the reporters present. Yu Guan looked at the reporters who were discussing in the audience. She couldn't help but feel disdain in her heart. These people from the media, She had already given them red packets before. What else could they be dissatisfied with? What's more, when the price was announced later, she was afraid that they would have a completely different feeling. Although she thought so in her heart, as the host, she continued very professionally. Next, let's invite Miss Snow Girl, the general manager of Kieran Group, to introduce the product in the promotional video just now, as well as our company's upcoming products. The cameras and video cameras of the reporters began to work. They also wanted to know why this stunning beauty with long ice blue hair, whom they had seen for the first time, was able to sit in the position of general manager. Snow Girl bowed slightly, and a faint smile appeared on her cold face. Suddenly, it was like 100 flowers blooming. She was not inferior to Xiao Lu on the other side of Qiyu. Moreover, the invisible noble temperament from the Emperor Heart Snow Lotus was incomparable to Xiao Lu. The long ice blue hair didn't look like it was dyed at all. The light blue hair easily gave people a magical sense of beauty. I'm very happy to meet so many friends from the media here today. It has been less than half a year since our Kieran Group was established. After the joint efforts of our colleagues in the group, we are finally going to withdraw our first batch of products today. I think everyone here already knows that our Kieran Group currently only has one main business, and that is fruit. From the video just now, everyone should have seen that our company's fruit is different. To put it simply, although most of what you saw in the promotional video just now was made with special effects, the final product that appeared in Miss Xiao Lu's hands at every stage was the real product of our company. At this point, Snow Girl paused for a moment. Most of the reporters below were shocked. They had seen the previous promotional video very clearly. At least, as far as they knew, they had never seen such a fruit. Speaking of which, it was more like a work of art. Qiyu smiled slightly, and there was a faint light in his eyes. Feeling the confidence of Snow Girl, he couldn't help but show some admiration. Frankly speaking, he was more shocked by the promotional video just now than any reporter present. After all, he had really seen these fruits. The 3 segments of the promotional video could be said to show the completely different styles of the 3 fruits. The elegance of the jadeite fruit, the luxury of the amethyst fruit, and the liveliness of the sapphire fruit, which seemed to be nurtured by the spiritual energy of the world, all left a deep impression on people. Although there was no advertising, it was precisely because of this that the entire promotional video was more complete. Qiyu believed that anyone who saw this promotional video would definitely want to find out the truth. Snow Girl continued. The 3 fruits that appeared in the promotional video just now are called emerald fruit, amethyst fruit, and sapphire fruit, according to the different colors. They're the main products of our first phase. There are also 3 different series. Each series has different characteristics. The fruits launched by our Kieran Group have different characteristics, but there is one thing in common. Here, I can guarantee that as long as it is launched by our company, it will definitely be able to ensure the original ecological effect. After being tested by the National Professional Department, it has enough protection. The 3 series of fruits launched this time are named after the 3 fruits just now according to the different colors. The 3 fruits in the promotional video just now are the fruit kings of these 3 series. I think the reporters must have a lot of questions to ask. Now, everyone could speak. Indeed, after listening to Snow Girl's brief introduction, the reporters below were already a little eager to start. These media personnel were still very professional. When they heard Snow Girl say that they could ask questions, almost all the reporters raised their hands. Yu Guan selectively called a senior reporter from the Yanwang Republic National Television first. General Manager Snow Girl, I would like to ask, what are the effects of these fruits launched by your company? What is the approximate level of positioning? As far as I know, there has never been a fruit company in China that has launched their own fruit products in such a high-profile way like your company. Snow Girl said there are many specific effects. If I introduce them one by one here, I'm afraid it will waste a lot of your precious time. After the press conference, there will be a detailed introduction on the CD that everyone will get. As for positioning, the fruits produced by our company will take the high-end route. After all, our company has invested a lot of financial and material resources in research and development and ensuring the original ecological quality. As businessmen, We have to make money, don't we? Snow Girl's humorous voice immediately won the favor of the reporters present. After all, Beauty still had a lot of advantages in this aspect. The second reporter who was pointed out stood up and said, "I would like to ask Miss Xiao Lu, why did you take on Kieran Group's advertisement? Didn't you say before that you wouldn't easily take on any commercial advertisements?" Xiao Lu still looked elegant. She nodded slightly and said, "Indeed, I said that I wouldn't easily take on commercial advertisements. However, I think everyone has already seen that the promotional video just now is not as simple as a commercial. I am very satisfied with the settings of the entire film and the overall effect of the shooting. In my opinion, this promotional video is more like a work of art, just like the 3 series of products of Kieran Group." The reporter obviously had no intention of letting Xiao Lu go. He asked, "May I take the liberty to ask how long Miss Xiao Lu will be the spokesperson for Kieran Group? Also, how much is the signing fee that Kieran Group gave you?" Xiao Lu smiled slightly and said, "Originally, I shouldn't answer this question without CEO Chi's permission, but I won't reveal anything now. I will temporarily be the spokesperson for Kieran Group for a year as long as Kieran Group needs. I think this time will be extended. Otherwise, I will have to spend a lot of money. As for how much the signing fee is, you might as well ask CEO Chi directly." The reporter turned to Chi and asked, "Mr. Chi, could you please answer the question?" Chi's expression had been very calm. Coupled with his black shirt and white hair, he gave off a somewhat cold feeling. "Since Miss Xiao Lu doesn't mind, I'll let you know. There was no harm in telling everyone. The way Miss Xiao Lu signed the contract was not measured by money. We have already reached an agreement. During the time that Miss Xiao Lu signed the contract, the group will pay Miss Xiao Lu a sapphire fruit every week as compensation." As soon as he said that, the audience gasped in surprise. It was the first time for the reporters to hear that a popular star would sign a contract with a company for the price of 1 fruit per week. For them, in this world full of benefits, it was unbelievable. The reporter was stunned for a moment. Then he asked, "I don't know if Miss Xiao Lu signed this contract because she has a good relationship with your group. So she's doing the endorsement as a favor?" Chiyu hadn't said anything yet. Xiao Lu had already answered first. "No, I haven't known Mr. Chi for a long time, and I have nothing to do with Kieran Group. However, I don't think there's anything wrong with the signing fee this time. I think that as long as a woman has personally tasted the sapphire fruit, she will definitely feel the same pain as me. Because the sapphire fruit, as my reward, can be said to be unique in the world." Chiyu nodded to Xiao Lu next to him. Xiao Lu was also looking at him. The two of them looked at each other. They couldn't help but show a knowing smile. As soon as the third reporter stood up, he immediately asked a question that all the reporters wanted to ask. "Mr. Chi, Mr. Shui, can you let us see the real product of your company? Just now Mr. Shui said that the real product is the same as in the promotional video. If so, we would like to see it very much." Chiyu gave Snow Girl a questioning look. After all, he was only here to participate in this press conference. As for what the company had prepared, he didn't know. Snow Girl nodded and said, "Of course." The etiquette lady walked up to the stage with a large tray and placed the brocade box on the tray in front of Snow Girl. The brocade box was exactly the same as the one that Chiyu had given to General G that day. Looking at the huge sapphire inlaid on the brocade box and the elegant shape of the entire brocade box, the reporters' cameras lit up almost at the same time. Snow Girl elegantly opened the brocade box and then pulled open a total of 3 layers of brocade box, so that the fruit in the brocade box was presented in front of everyone. Different from the brocade box that Chiyu had given to General G that day, this brocade box contained all the fruits that Kieran Group had launched this time. The 3 layers were divided into 3 series, and the fruits of the next grade were like stars surrounding the moon. The fruit kings of each series were clustered in the center. Praises were heard one after another. The emerald fruit, sapphire fruit, and amethyst fruit had extremely dazzling characteristics. Now, with the brocade box as a foil, they looked even more noble. Although the fruits of the next grade were slightly inferior in terms of quality, they were far from being comparable to the ordinary fruits on the market. Snow Girl smiled and said, "This gift box is the highest level of VIP gift that our company has launched this time. It contains all the products that we have launched this time. Among them, there are 6 of the Sapphire series and 5 of the other 2 series. The photo shoot lasted for nearly 5 minutes, and no one knew how much time was spent handing in the papers. The reporters continued to ask questions. President Xi, can you announce the price now? A reporter who was called stood up and couldn't wait to ask. Qiyu smiled indifferently and asked, "This reporter friend, how much do you think the products launched by our company are worth?" The reporter pondered for a moment and said, "I'm not sure. However, from the surface, it's hard to believe that these are actually fruits. Miss Xiao Lu is right. These are simply works of art." Qiyu said, "Just now, President Shui said that the products launched by our company are absolutely guaranteed to be of the original quality. Everyone can rest assured about this. With the authoritative certification of the highest testing organization in the country, I think everyone doesn't have to doubt it." The reporter said, "Then I'm afraid that each of these fruits is worth more than 100 yuan. However, with such a high price, I don't know if anyone will pay the bill." Who are the main customers that Kirin Group is targeting? Qiyu said, "I can't say who they are targeting. I can only say that they are targeting people who can recognize our company's products. As for the price you mentioned, there is still a certain gap between it and our pricing. Since the press conference has been going on, I think everyone is eager to know the exact price. All right, I will officially announce it now." As he spoke, Qiyu stood up and pointed at the fruits in the brocade box. He said, "The ordinary fruits of the Jade series and the Amethyst series are priced at 588 yuan each. The ordinary fruits of the Sapphire series are priced at 688 yuan each. The King of the Jade series, the Jade fruit, is priced at 1,088 yuan, and the Amethyst fruit is also priced at 1,088 yuan. And this time, the Sapphire fruit that we are promoting is priced at 1,188 yuan. That's about it." Qiyu's words immediately caused a huge commotion among the reporters. Even the cheapest fruit cost close to 600 yuan, which was simply incredible. A reporter suddenly asked loudly, "President Xi, do you think that there will be people in the country who will pay for them with such a high price?" Qiyu nodded firmly and said, "I can guarantee that there will definitely be people who will pay for them. I think that after all the reporters have seen the detailed introduction of our company's products and the introduction of the ingredients, you will understand. Our company's products can also be classified as luxury goods, but I can guarantee that they are absolutely worth the money." "Oh, right, I haven't finished speaking just now. The price that I just mentioned is all calculated in US dollars. In this way, it is more applicable in the world." "US dollars? Oh my God, it's actually US dollars." The entire venue was silent. Qiyu's firm figure and his firm tone made every reporter's heart filled with a feeling of shock. No wonder Xiao Lu returned with the sapphire fruit as a reward. Each sapphire fruit was worth about 1,200 US dollars. That would be more than 50 fruits a year, which was about 50,000 to 60,000 US dollars. Although it was not very high, it was definitely not low. After all, as the spokesperson of this kind of fruit company, the most he could do was to shoot some promotional videos. Although the reporters could not understand why there was such an expensive fruit, the price that Qiyu announced was definitely good news for them. More than one person had already thought of the title of sky-high priced fruit in Beijing. Yuguan saw that the time was almost ripe. He stood up and said, "Today's press conference will end here. If you have any questions, you can find the answers in the gifts we have given you." At this time, after listening to Yuguan's words, the reporters remembered that Yuguan had said before that there was a fruit produced by Kirin Group among the gifts. Judging from the price that Qiyu had just announced, it was worth thousands of Yuan dollars. Now, no reporter felt that Kirin Group was stingy. Just as Yuguan announced the end of the press conference, a calm and powerful voice sounded from the entrance of the auditorium. "It seems that I'm still a little late. Fortunately, I'm here at the right time. I really appreciate Kirin Group's products. I wonder if I can order now?" The sudden voice immediately attracted the attention of the audience. Seeing the person who appeared at the door, Qiyu's body suddenly became a little stiff. The light in his eyes changed, and the excitement in his eyes fluctuated violently. There were only 2 people at the entrance of the auditorium, a man and a woman. The man was Qi Tianlei, and the woman was naturally Ying Xiaodai. The eyes of the husband and wife were focused on Qi Yu at this time. The look in Ying Xiaodia's eyes was eager. Although Qi Tianlei's eyes were very calm, the warm smile on his face seemed to make Qi Yu feel something. Chapter 241. CEO Qi, why are you here at this press conference? CEO Qi, CEO Ying, why are you so sure that Kirin Group's products are worth the money? After all, the price announced by Kirin Group is already very outrageous. CEO Qi, Golden Grain Group, just had such a big incident. Why are you still in a mood to buy fruits here? All kinds of questions came one after another. Qi Tianlei was not annoyed by the crowd of reporters. He calmly said, "First of all, the terrorist attack on Golden Grain Group made me very angry. However, since the incident has been resolved, as the chairman of the board of directors, what I have to do is not to be angry, but to deal with the aftermath. I think I've done my best in this regard. Secondly, I came here today because of the reputation of the company. As far as I know, the original fruits produced by Kirin Group are definitely worth the price. I think the price announced by CEO Qi just now should be the promotional price for the products that have just been launched. That is why I want to take advantage of this time to buy some. Of course, I will keep it for myself. Let me ask you, the fruit that can prolong life is more effective than any beauty products in the world and is more effective than any perfume. Why is it not worth the price announced by CEO Qi? Perhaps all the reporters think that the price is very high now, but when the products of Kirin Group are put into practice in the market and show their real effects, everyone will no longer think so. Okay, everyone, please make way. After all, Qi Tianlei was a famous tycoon in the Yanhuang Republic, and he was also a recent figure in the news. His words immediately made the reporters look at Kirin Group in a new light. The reporters took the initiative to make way for the couple. Qi Tianlei led Ying Xiaodai all the way to the front of the rostrum. He looked at the handsome Qi Yu on the stage and said, "CEO Qi, I want to make a long-term purchase order. I wonder if it is possible to give a discount on the basis of the current price?" Looking at Qi Tianlei's wise eyes, Qi Yu slightly hesitated and said, "Since you are interested in my company's fruits, then we can talk about it in detail in my company." Qi Tianlei nodded and said, "Okay, I will disturb you later." Qi Tianlei nodded and said, "Okay, I'll disturb you later." After taking a deep look at Qi Yu, Qi Tianlei left. He pulled Ying Xiaodai, who was reluctant to leave, and turned to leave. Looking at their backs, Qi Yu's eyes became a little moist. He knew, at the very least, Qi Tianlei had already noticed him. It was very likely that he had already acknowledged his identity to a certain extent. Snow Girl whispered in Qi Yu's ear, "Who is this person? He has a good temperament, and he seems to look a little like you. I don't know why, but the temperament of the two of you seems to be somewhat similar. I don't know what it is." He saw Qi Tianlei and his wife. Qi was no longer in the mood to stay any longer. He transmitted his voice and said, "Let's go back first." Xiaolu naturally knew about Qi Tianlei and his wife. She looked at Qi Yu in surprise, but he didn't ask anything. Qi Yu calmed down his mood and said to Yu Guan, "Sister Yu Guan, I'll leave the matter here to you. The company's 3 major series of products are on the market, but the number of each store must be controlled. The rarer something is, the more expensive it is. At the same time, the company's products are only sold through the high-class stores." Yu Guan nodded and said, "Don't worry, I've already arranged it before the press conference. I'll go back now and ship the goods immediately." Qi Yu turned to Xiao Lu and said, "Miss Xiao Lu, we can set off in a few days. I think Brother Chang Jia should have already told you about it." Xiao Lu nodded and said with a smile. He smiled and said, "Yes, I hope the place that Mr. Qi will take me to this time will satisfy me." Qi Yu looked at her and couldn't help but think of Xiao Lu's 3 different styles of dressing in the promotional video just now. There was a faint smile in his eyes. "Just call me by my name in the future. We are already friends, aren't we? I still have to thank you for your help today." Xiao Lu said with a smile, "You're my boss. It's only right for me to help you." After Qi Yu left the Shangri-La Hotel with Snow Girl, he went straight to Kirin Group. He couldn't wait to know what kind of attitude the Qi Tianlei couple had towards him. The reporters were eager to receive the expensive gifts from Kirin Group, so they didn't encounter much obstruction when they left the hotel. Snow Girl was still very familiar with Chiyu. His current appearance was obviously not right. Sitting in the front passenger seat, she asked, "Chiyu, what's wrong? Your mood seems to be greatly affected. You've been a bit strange these days. Is it because of the two people who just came?" Chiyu knew that he couldn't hide it anymore. He said with a bitter smile, "Yes, it's because of them." Snow Girl asked curiously, "Why? Although they look extraordinary, they seem to be ordinary people." Chiyu glanced at Snow Girl and said slowly, "Because they are probably my biological parents." "Ah," Snow Girl exclaimed. Looking at Chiyu, all kinds of emotions suddenly gushed out in her heart. She said excitedly, "Really? Then you're not an orphan. But just now, it seems that you haven't recognized each other." While driving, Chiyu briefly told Snow Girl what happened in the Golden Valley group a few days ago. After listening to his words, Snow Girl couldn't help but frown and said, "Indeed, it would be good if they were ordinary people. However, they don't believe in your character. Why would you pretend to be your parents because of money?" Chiyu sighed and said, "It's not their fault. After all, they have so many assets, and there have been people who pretended to be their parents before. What's more, it's not that I don't like money. Otherwise, what's the use of Kirin Group? They came to the press conference today to find me. He also took the initiative to buy our group's products to support me. I think he must have figured something out. As for how they think of me, we'll know later." When the two returned to Kirin Group, Chi Tianlei and his wife were already there with 6 bodyguards. Under the arrangement of the Kirin Group's reception staff, they were waiting for Chiyu and Snow Girl in the big conference room. Chiyu was much calmer than before, but now he was eager to know the result from Chi Tianlei and his wife. As soon as he returned to the group, he couldn't wait to go to the big conference room with Snow Girl. Chi Tianlei and Ing Xiaodai were sitting there waiting. When they saw Chiyu and Ing Xiaodai come in, both of them stood up. Chi Tianlei was still calm, but Ing Xiaodai's eyes were obviously very excited. Chiyu forcefully calmed his emotions that could explode at any moment. He walked in front of the two and made an inviting gesture. "Please have a seat. Now we can talk about buying the product." Chi Tianlei gazed deeply at Chiyu. "Do you really think that we came to you today just to buy your company's products?" Chiyu laughed self-deprecatingly and said, "If that's not the case, then what is your purpose?" Was he going to acknowledge her as his relative? "Don't tell me you're not afraid that after you acknowledge me, you'll be in trouble. Did I cheat you of your family property?" Chi Tianlei and Ing Xiaodai were both stunned. Ing Xiaodai said, "What? Don't you know that our assets have already been transferred to Ing Ying's name, and we are just managing it for her?" Chiyu looked at them in surprise and said, "Why should I know?" Chi Tianlei showed a bitter smile on his face and looked at Ing Xiaodai. "It seems that our arrangements have all failed. It turns out that he did not notice us. So, it was only yesterday. Chi Tianlei and his wife had publicly announced that all the assets under their name have been transferred to their daughter, Chi Yingying, and they were currently managing it. In their opinion, since Chi was the CEO of Kirin Group and had come to recognize them as husband and wife, he would definitely pay attention to their affairs. Their daughter inheriting the property was also very high profile, so it was impossible for Chiyu not to know. But now it seemed that he didn't care much about their affairs. The affairs of the couple. The two's eyes fell on Chiyu's face. Chi Tianlei said, "Then it's not too late for me to tell you now. Xiaodai and I have already transferred all the assets under our name to our daughter, Yingying's name. Now, we're just two ordinary white-collar workers who only get paid." Looking at Chi Tianlei and Ing Xiaodai, Chiyu's face gradually became cold. He was a very smart person. He immediately understood what Chi Tianlei said. They were testing him to see if he would reveal his true colors because of the assets. Although he knew that this was a very normal thing, Chiyu felt very uncomfortable in his heart. "CEO Chi, what's the point of telling me this?" Chiyu said coldly. Chi Tianlei frowned slightly. Chiyu's attitude also made him feel very uncomfortable. Could it be that this young man in front of him, who gave him a special feeling, really came to recognize him for his assets? "I just want to know, when you know that we don't have more than 10 billion yuan of assets, will you still choose to recognize us?" Chi Tianlei stared at Chi Yu with burning eyes. Before Chi Yu could speak, Snow Girl had already stepped forward and came to his side. She said, "Sir, what kind of person do you think Chi Yu is? I know that you may be his biological father. Perhaps you do have assets that you are proud of, but don't you think that this is unfair to a person who has no relatives for 20 years? You are afraid that your assets will be coveted by Chi Yu, but have you ever thought about Chi Yu's feelings? You should have investigated what kind of person Chi Yu is. Although we are not as rich as you, we also have money that we can't finish spending. Moreover, money doesn't mean much to Chi Yu." Snow Girl knew Chi Yu's temper very well. She could feel the aura exuding from Chi Yu's body. She knew that Chi Yu was on the verge of exploding. He definitely couldn't stand being questioned by his closest kin in such an insulting manner. Ing Xiaodai hurriedly said, No, don't misunderstand us. We are not who you think we are. Since we might be Chi Yu's parents, we have to find a way to verify it. In the past, there have been many people called Chi Yu who have come to find us, and every single one of them looks extremely similar to us. However, we do not know how many times they have cheated us of our feelings. Money does not matter to us, but we are truly afraid that our hopes will once again be dashed to smithereens. The disappearance of our child has always been a pain in our hearts. We really don't want such sorrow to come again, because I really can't bear it. We have no choice but to be so careful." At this point, tears rolled down Ing Xiaodia's face, and her eyes became hazy as she looked at Chi Yu. Listening to Ing Xiaodia's words, the lines on Chi Yu's face softened a lot. He sighed and said, "It's no wonder that you think so. I won't say anything else, and I won't say that I'm definitely your son. I think that since you were able to come here today, you must have already thought of a solution. So please say it now." Chi Tianlei looked at Chi Yu and said, "In ancient times, blood was used to determine one's kin. That's obviously not very scientific. I know an authoritative doctor. Let science prove the blood relationship between us." Chi Yu's pupils contracted slightly. "Are you referring to the king's DNA certification?" Chi Tianlei nodded and said, "If what I said just now made you feel wronged, I apologize to you. From the feeling, I also don't think that you're the kind of person who would use other people's family to gain wealth. However, as Xiaodai said just now, we really don't have the courage to bear another disappointment or even despair. So, I have to rely on professional evidence." Chi nodded and said, "Okay, if that's the case, then I'll go with you." He also hoped that this matter could be put to an end, so that his heart could be at ease. Looking at his parents in front of him, his heart ached very, very much. They were orphans for 20 years. However, his parents were in front of him, but he still had to go through a lot of complicated things to verify whether he was their son or not. Chi Yu suddenly felt very discouraged. The family he had imagined did not appear, and his heart was almost unable to bear it. Now, he even wanted to immediately return to the era of ancient beasts so that he could escape from this atmosphere. He had no parents for 20 years. Even if he had them now, what was the point? If they could doubt him now, would they still doubt him in the future? Gently shaking his head, Chi Yu walked to Chi Tianlei's side and made a gesture to invite him. Chi Tianlei said, "You don't have to go specially. I brought the equipment today, and I only need to take a little of your blood sample for testing. Don't worry, this matter is related to whether you're my son or not. I will personally send the blood sample to the hospital for testing." As he spoke, he waved his hand, and the bodyguard who followed him took out a syringe that seemed to be made of alloy and handed it over. Chi Yu took the syringe, and without even looking at it, he inserted it into his right arm. His brows slightly wrinkled. It was not the pain in his arm, but in his heart. His blood flowed into the syringe, but he did not feel much. It was not until the entire syringe was filled with his blood that he pulled out the syringe. He handed it back to Chi Tianlei's bodyguard. Chi Tianlei's face showed a trace of relief. Since Chi Yu dared to let him test the blood, it could already prove a lot of things. He smiled and said, "Today is the day you hold a press conference to officially announce the launch of the product. I'm sorry to disturb you. I'm very interested in the products of your Kirin Group, and now we can talk. If you are willing, regardless of the results of the test, we can carry out a certain degree of cooperation." Qiyu looked at Qi Tianlei with a somewhat strange gaze and said, "Now you don't think I'm a liar? Do you think our company's products can really make money?" Qi Tianlei smiled and said, "Although I only saw the end of the previous promotional video, from the atmosphere shown in the promotional video, and the fact that your company dares to position its products at such a high level, I think you must have something to rely on. Moreover, Yuguan works in your company, and I still believe in her vision. Moreover, Yuguan works in your company. I believe in her foresight. At the same time, I also want to taste the characteristics of your company's products. At the same time, I also want to taste the characteristics of your company's products. At the same time, I also want to taste the characteristics of your company's products." Qiyu slowly shook his head and said, "Cooperation is not needed. We're just a small, newly opened company. How can we be worthy of cooperating with a big company like Golden Valley? Moreover, I don't need charity or pity. Since I was a child, I don't need it any day of my life. Mr. Qi's purpose today has been achieved, so forgive me for not seeing you off." Looking at Qiyu's somewhat indifferent face, Ying Xiaodia's tears flowed again in her eyes. On the contrary, Qi Tianlei's eyes showed a trace of appreciation. "Good. Unyielding and unyielding, just like my style when I was young. I think the results will come out today. When we come again, maybe everything will be different." After saying that, he nodded to Qiyu, pulled Ying Xiaodai, and turned to walk outside. Qiyu watched them leave the conference room. Only then did the cold expression on his face melt. He suddenly felt very tired. Ever since he obtained Kirin's Thundercloud Force, this was the first time he felt so tired. From the nervousness and excitement when he first learned about his parents to the disappointment now, everything happened so quickly. He would rather fight with Bull Demon King and Qiyu a few times than to see such a thing happen again. Let the test be tested. He had endured too much. They said they didn't want to be disappointed again, but did they think about his feelings? He was an orphan for 20 years. He had no relatives since he was a child. How did he get through all those years? Did they know how much he had been looked down upon and how much he had suffered? The world was unfair to begin with. It didn't matter. Since they were willing to be tested, he would let them be. Qiyu's heart was already a little cold. He didn't want to think about how he would face Qi Tianlei and Ying Xiaodai in the future. He pulled a chair and sat down, quietly staring at the wall in front of him. A pair of warm and soft arms wrapped around Qiyu's shoulders. "Don't think too much. The innocent will know their innocence. This is also a chance for you to verify whether they are your parents or not. Everyone has their own concerns. Moreover, your parents weren't ordinary people to begin with, right? You should be happy that you found them." Qiyu patted Snow Girl's hand and said, "Don't worry, I'm fine. I've thought it through. With you lovers and friends who can trust me and be with me, this life is enough. My parents gave birth to me, but it's been 20 years. Haven't I been alone? Let them doubt as much as they want. Snow Girl, the company's products are now officially on the market. The company will depend on you and Sister Yuguan. I want to go out for a walk. Recently, I've been working hard to cultivate. I want to take advantage of the time when Kirin Group is starting to develop. I want to relax." Snow Girl stuck her pretty face to Qiyu. "Are you running away?" Qiyu smiled and said, "Do I look like the kind of person who would run away?" The Snow Lady smiled faintly and said, "That's good. Go ahead then. I'll take care of everything at home. I'll definitely be a good wife to you. However, you have to keep your phone on at all times. I'll inform you as soon as there's good news." About an hour after the Kirin Group's press conference ended, reports from various major media outlets had already appeared. From TV, advertisements, newspapers, the internet, and so on, they entered people's field of vision. When many people first saw the quotations of the 3 series of fruits from Kirin Group, most people thought that Kirin Group was simply crazy. However, immediately after that, Kirin Group's promotional video brought a huge shock to people. Even those reporters who had seen a lot of the world were stimulated by their promotional video, let alone ordinary people. Xiaolu's appearance in the 3 series left a deep impression on them. The visual impact of the 3 pure colors made people deeply remember the fruit in Xiaolu's hand. Although they didn't even know what the name of the fruit was, as a promotional video, people didn't necessarily have to like it. Sometimes, strong stimulation could also leave a deep impression on people. This impression was enough. The name Kirin Group, in just a few days, almost swept across the entire Yanwang Republic, especially in Beijing. The news of the 3 series of fruits of Kirin Group and the dazzling promotional video, with the support of the group's unstinting marketing spending, were fully spread. On the first day of the press conference, Qilin Group sales were 0. How could people buy such expensive fruits? It was very difficult to make people buy such expensive fruits. However, from the second day, there were people who were curious about these expensive fruits. No matter in any country, there was no shortage of rich people, especially those who had money but had no place to spend it. The quantity of the first batch of products launched by Kirin Group was very limited. About 2,000 for each kind of ordinary fruit, and only 500 for each kind of Fruit King. The quantity was not much. When the goods were distributed to those high-end stores, there were only a few in each store. As the saying goes, the rarer something is, the more expensive it is. When a market was opened, the slow sales had already begun. Everything had begun to get on track. On the side of Kirin Group, with Snow Girl and Yu Guan as the leaders, the entire company had already been operating at a high speed. Well, I had to know. The biggest advantage of Kirin Group was that their products did not have too much cost at all. How much could the packaging alone cost? Most of the cost was used for publicity. However, with the high price of the products in their hands, as long as a small part of the total product was sold, that would be a very high profit. The reason why Qiyu decided to distribute as little as possible in the first batch was to not waste the resources of the fruits that had already been brought back. After all, once the fruits were out of the cold storage, the preservation period was very limited. Another reason was that the rarer something was, the more expensive it was. He hoped that there would be a situation where there was a shortage of goods. In this case, naturally, there would be people looking for Kirin Group's fruits in the market. As long as the effects of the 3 series of more than 10 kinds of fruits were shown among the people who bought them, then, under the chain reaction, the number of people who bought them would only increase in the future. Once the domestic market was on track, then Kirin Group could start to develop the overseas market. Foreigners' money was what Qiyu wanted to earn the most. Without driving, Qiyu strolled alone on the streets of Beijing. He had been walking like this for a few hours. After letting Snow Girl take care of everything, he left Dragon Field Courtyard. For him, sleep itself was dispensable. Zhao Shi, walking slowly on the street, feeling the hustle and bustle of the big city, made his mood become calmer and calmer. A calm heart was what he needed the most right now. It had been a few hours since he left Dragon Field Courtyard. Qi was not worried about Kirin Group. After all, he was very confident in the unique, original, ecological fruit. As for the other things, he did not think too much about it. As long as he operated properly, making money was a matter of time. After walking for 3 hours, even Qiyu did not know what he was thinking. He just felt that his mood seemed to be a lot more relaxed. His parents seemed to have a tendency to accept him. He had thought it through. No matter what, they were his parents. Everything that happened before was because they were too afraid of being hurt. As for himself, since the past was in the past, under the arrangement of the heavens, he already had such powerful strength. Then what else could he ask for? Therefore, Qiyu's mood was much calmer now, even calmer than before he went to the ancient beast era. After thinking about his parents, for some reason, Qiyu's heart suddenly surged with the figure of Yamu. For Yamu, he had no other feelings except hatred. No matter why Yamu lied to him, no matter how difficult it was for him. After all, she had caused so much harm to him. If it was just harm to him, Qiyu might not hate Yamu as much as he did now. However, because of her, Klinsman, the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus King, and Wen Ting were dead. These 3 people were more important to him than the last. Moreover, they had all died for him. If it wasn't for the changes in Yamu, at least the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus King and Wen Ting would still be alive. Although Qiyu had some helpless sympathy for Yamu deep in his heart, he could never forgive this woman. Revenge had to be taken, and he didn't care when it would end. His own woman had died because of that matter. If he didn't take revenge for her, then, was he still a man? Thinking of this, a faint cold light flashed in Chi Yu's eyes, and the emotions in his heart couldn't help but become cold. Mount Everest, the highest peak in the world. That battle would determine the fate of him and Yamu. No matter how powerful she was, he would not retreat. At the same time, it was also a battle that represented the East and West Guardians. He couldn't lose, and he couldn't afford to lose. A strong confidence filled his whole body, and Chi Yu could even feel the sharpness of the Xianyuan sword, as if it was ready to drink blood. Perhaps he could let the guardians of the 12 constellations go, but he couldn't let Yamu off. Everything that Yamu had done was already irreversible. Ting ting ah, just you wait. I will definitely take revenge for you, and I will definitely work hard to raise my strength so that you can return to the human world as soon as possible. Thinking of Wen Ting, the coldness in Chi Yu's heart melted, and in its place was endless gentleness. Wen Ting usually didn't speak much, and was always by his side gently. However, when it came to matters, the contrast between Yamu and Wen Ting was too strong. One used her own life as the price to obtain powerful strength, and the other? But she had used her own life in exchange for his. A woman was willing to die for him, and not even her corpse was left behind. What else was there to say about such feelings? In Chi Yu's heart, Wen Ting had long been placed in the most important position. It wasn't just love, but also gratitude and a kind of kinship. When love was sublimated to kinship, then she was already like a part of Chi Yu's body. The sky gradually darkened, and Chi Yu looked up at the sky. The light in his eyes became much gentler, and he seemed to see Wen Ting's figure. As the sky darkened, the number of people on the streets gradually increased, and it was time to get off work. Chi Yu slowly walked through the bustling crowd, and because of his head of white hair, he often became the focus of attention. With regards to this, Chi Yu didn't pay much attention to it. If they wanted to look, then let them look. After all, they had their eyes on them. He suddenly felt that it was very comfortable to quietly think about things on his own. Some of the knots in his heart gradually unraveled as he continued to think. When he gradually swept away the various negative emotions in his heart, he began to focus on his own abilities. Chapter 242. The Xianyuan Sword Against the Pangu Axe. Every time he thought of the collision between the two magical weapons, Chi Yu would unconsciously become excited. In the battle that day, even at the end, he believed that he could at least escape from Chi Yu. When one's strength reached a certain level, even if he met an opponent more powerful than himself, he might lose to the opponent in battle. But if he really wanted to escape, it would not be difficult. Chi Yu understood this very well. That was why he persisted until the end in the battle with Chi Yu. And the appearance of the Bull Demon King, it disrupted their final collision. However, it was also because of his appearance that Chi Yu once again deeply understood the terror of absolute strength. The Bull Demon King was only empty-handed, but he left Chi Yu without the slightest ability to resist. How could such a powerful strength be explained? It could only prove that he was too powerful. Thinking of this, even Chi Yu himself felt that it was nonsense. In Chi Yu's heart, the target he had always aimed at was the Bull Demon King. Back then, when he accepted the Bull Demon King as an envoy, although it was an accident, but in a sense, luck definitely played a huge role. Otherwise, he would not have been able to survive. With the Bull Demon King's strength, if he had moved a little slower, or if the Bull Demon King was not so arrogant, perhaps everything would have been different, and there would not be the current Chi Yu. A faint light shone in his eyes. When would he be able to really fight against the Bull Demon King? He would probably have to learn at least the first 6 of the 8 laws of Xianyuan and have enough energy to use them. After seeing the battle between Chi Yu and the Bull Demon King, Chi Yu's estimation of the Bull Demon King increased a little. Right now, the thing that made him feel the most hopeless was that although his strength was improving through continuous cultivation, it was not enough to make him stronger. But the Bull Demon King was also improving. Moreover, the Bull Demon King was training in his body at every moment. Once he really found a way to break the life and death domain, then he would face a devastating blow. For some reason, Chi Yu vaguely sensed that although the life and death domain seemed to be absolute, the life and death domain, seemed to be absolute. But sooner or later, the Bull Demon King would completely crush it. What he needed to do was to truly possess the strength to fight against the Bull Demon King before that day came. At that time, not only would he no longer have to fear this enemy, but he would also have a true messenger. In the battle with Chi Yu's mastery of the Xinyuan sword had improved a lot without the help of the Xinyuan sword. After all, there are not many enemies who were worthy of him using the Xinyuan sword. At the same time, Chi Yu also realized that a calm mind was extremely important in a battle with a powerhouse. It was just like when he faced the archangel summoned by the 4 cardinals of the Vatican in London. If he had not used up too much energy due to demonization, and if he had not destroyed the 1,000 opportunities ever-changing Xuanji domain prematurely without control, perhaps the final situation would not have happened. If he still had 30% of his strength left, it would not have been so easy for Yamu to get her way. A calm mind and powerful strength. This was what a true powerhouse should have. Raising his head to look at the sky, Chi Yu pondered for a moment. Not only did his mood lighten up, but he also had the urge to cultivate. Return to the Dragonfield courtyard? Yes, let's go back. There were too many people on the street, and he definitely could not use his flying ability. He looked around to see if he could find a dark corner, and then use Kirin to conceal himself before flying back to the Dragonfield courtyard to train. At this moment, Chi Yu suddenly saw a familiar figure walking in front of him. Seeing that figure, Chi Yu's heart skipped a beat. It was not only a familiar figure, but also a familiar aura. It was as if something was tugging at his heart, and he subconsciously followed. It was obviously a woman. She was tall and slender, with a pair of slender thighs perfectly outlined by her jeans. She was wearing a white tracksuit. Although it was a little bulky, it did not affect the beauty of her alluring figure. She wore the latest sports cap on her head, which completely covered her hair, and at the same time revealed her slender, swan-like neck. Her snow-white skin was almost the same as the tracksuit on her upper body. Looking at it from afar, one could still feel how delicate it was. Chi Yu quickened his pace. From the first few hundred meters, he gradually closed in. As he got closer and closer to the girl in front of him, the familiar feeling in his heart became clearer and clearer. However, until now, he still could not tell who this person was. Chi Yu quickened his pace. The girl in front of him did not know if someone was following her, but she also quickened her pace. In the bustling crowd, Chi Yu could not just run to catch up with her, so the distance between the two of them was maintained. It did not get closer, nor did it get further. What surprised Chi Yu was that the girl seemed to have some sort of magical power that allowed her to pass through the dense flow of people. Even though she was passing through the dense crowd, her footsteps were unhindered. Chi Yu could not see her face, but from the majority of the people in front of him, he could tell that the girl's appearance, whether beautiful or ugly, was very extraordinary. The two of them walked like this. As the two of them walked, Chi Yu followed them until the girl suddenly walked into a shopping mall. Chi Yu was a little anxious. After all, there would be more people in a shopping mall, and it would be very easy to lose her. He subconsciously spread out his spiritual power and locked onto the girl's figure. Once again, he quickened his pace to catch up. As soon as they entered the shopping mall, Chi Yu was stunned. He was surprised to find that the spiritual power that he had locked onto the girl had been transferred to another person. It was obviously not the same person. This was because the person who had been transferred to was a man, and his figure was very different from the previous girl. What was going on? First, it failed on Chi Yu, and now it failed on a girl. Could it be that his spiritual power had really declined? That was impossible. During the month of training in the ancient behemoth period, he had used his spiritual power to control the energy of the source of nature to transform the bodies of his comrades in the Zodiac army every day. Whether it was in terms of overall strength or control of his spiritual power, he had made a lot of progress compared to before. Could it be that everything he saw just now was an illusion? Or the girl that he had just followed was not human at all? Thinking of this, a faint sense of fear rose in Chi Yu's heart. He understood that even if the other party was not a living being with the strength of his spiritual power, he was still left behind by the other party. Then, Even if this person's strength was not comparable to Chi-Yu, she would not be any weaker than him. After all, she was not a special creature like that May. Thinking of this, the emotional changes in Chi-Yu's heart became more obvious. He subconsciously walked forward. Without his spiritual power to follow, he could only rely on his vision to find her. Of course, the chances of finding her were very slim. Subconsciously, Chi-Yu knew that the other party had obviously discovered him. Otherwise, she would not have disappeared. His current physical and energy condition were very normal. It was impossible for him to be hallucinating. However, who was that girl? Thinking of this, Chi-Yu's body suddenly trembled. Could it be her? Was it Yomo? Among the girls that he knew, it seemed that only she could reach this level of strength. Could it be that she came to the Yanhuang Republic to find him? What seemed to be her goal? Did she want to destroy him before the Everest promise arrived? If she brought all the Constellation Guardians this time, coupled with her powerful strength, it was not impossible. However, very soon, Chi-Yu erased this thought. It cannot be Yomo. He was very familiar with Yomu's aura and temperament. Yomu's temperament was very noble, especially that faintly discernible sacred aura. It was impossible for anyone to imitate it, and it was also impossible for her to completely hide it. The girl that he followed just now did not have that temperament. Instead, she gave off a very lively feeling. She seemed to be a girl with a lively personality. If that was the case, then his judgment should have become a lot more correct. Thinking of this, the light in Chi-Yu's eyes became stronger. He secretly decided that no matter what, he had to find this person. Now that the Zodiac Guardian Warriors had finally gotten on the right track, and their overall strength had increased, he did not want a potential threat to be by his side. "Hi!" A soft voice suddenly sounded behind Chi-Yu without warning. He almost subconsciously took a step forward, and the thundercloud force in his body suddenly burst forth and condensed on Kieran's arm. In just an instant, he had already turned around. His speed was so fast that even an ordinary person's eyes could not catch him. It was as if he was facing behind him previously. It was her, the girl from just now. She was wearing a baseball cap and casual clothes. At the same time, she also had a moving angelic face. Those familiar pink eyes and moving gentle expression immediately evoked Chi-Yu's memories. "It's you?" Chi-Yu said in surprise. The girl smiled and said, "Isn't it me? I finally found you. I can't believe you still remember me and knew to follow me. Let's go. There's a cafe over there. How about we go and have a seat?" As she spoke, she had already walked towards the cafe. Following behind the girl, Chi-Yu's heart was in turmoil. No wonder her aura felt so familiar. It turned out to be her. The girl that appeared in front of Chi-Yu was extremely familiar. She was the girl that he had saved in Hell City, the headquarters of the Dark Parliament. Lungair. Lungair's aura seemed to be more restrained than the last time he saw her, but her appearance was still so attractive. From the visual and aura, although she and Yomu were completely different, the attractiveness that she brought to Chi-Yu was not any less than Yomu. Why did she come to the capital of the Yanhuang Republic? And she even found me. That day, she should have been captured by the Dark Parliament. Thinking of this, Chi-Yu could not help but feel a little guilty. After receiving Lungair's warning that day, he immediately returned to London. So many things happened after that, and he even forgot about this girl. This should not have happened. She had helped him, but he did not rescue her from Hell City. It was really shameful. However, at this moment, Chi-Yu could not help but doubt Lungair's identity. Wasn't she captured by the Dark Parliament? Why is she here? Moreover, what happened after I was defeated by the terrifying Great Demon King that day? Could it be that the Dark Parliament was so kind as to let me go? This was simply too unbelievable. However, since Lungair was already here, she would definitely answer these questions for me. While thinking, Chi-Yu had already followed Lungair to the cafe. Lungair found a remote corner and sat down. At this time, there were quite a lot of people in the cafe, and it was a little noisy. Chi-Yu walked to Lungair and sat down opposite her. Lungair subconsciously pulled the brim of her hat to cover her charming face. Taotaro National Day special update. The waiter walked over and asked, "What would the two of you like to drink?" Chi-Yu gestured to Lungair to have a drink. Lungair smiled and said, Give me a cup of Blue Mountain. What about you? Chiyu said, I want a bottle of beer. He had always had a mediocre feeling towards coffee, mainly because he did not have a good taste. He had never been to a cafe before, and he did not want to embarrass himself in front of Langnier. Therefore, he still ordered a bottle of beer that he was more used to. The waiter went to get the drinks. Langnier leaned forward and used her arms to support herself on the table. She held her beautiful face that only Chiyu could see and said with a smile, Are you wondering why I came to look for you? Chiyu nodded honestly. Langnier giggled and said, I can tell you, but you have to answer a question of mine first. Chiyu was stunned and said, What question? Langnier pointed at his heart and said, Did you miss me? Chiyu looked at this passionate beauty in surprise and said, This. Although he was good at making up stories, he did not know why. Looking at Langnier, he really could not lie to her. Indeed, he did not think of Langnier at all. Langnier pouted her charming red lips and said, I know you have no conscience. You did not miss me at all. How are you going to compensate me? Chiyu smiled bitterly and said, Whatever you say. But why did you come to look for me? I'm really sorry at that time. Because of some things that happened later on, I did not return to the Dark Council to look for you. After returning to the Yanhuang Republic, my heart has been very restless. I'm sorry. Langnier did not show any dissatisfaction. She still looked at Chiyu with a smile on her face and said, Let bygones be bygones. However, you have to tell me now. Then do you miss me now? Chiyu looked at her in surprise. Aren't you sitting right across from me? Why do you ask? Langnier said innocently, I don't care. You have to tell me if you miss me or not. Chiyu said helplessly, Yes, of course I miss you. You're so beautiful. Although he said that, he was subconsciously on guard in his heart. After his experience with Yamu, the current Chiyu was different from before. He would not want to do anything with a beauty the moment he saw her. Instead, he had a feeling of avoiding her. A beauty like Langnier. Her lethality was too great. Langnier smiled slightly and said, Consider yourself lucky. A few days ago, I suddenly felt that your aura was unstable a few times. Sometimes it even completely disappeared. Why is that? It wasn't until a few days ago that I felt your aura again. I was worried about you, so I specially came here to look for you. Hearing her words, Chiyu couldn't help but be shocked. One must know that Langnier was in the Dark Parliament back then. Germany was very far away from the Yanhuang Republic. For her to be able to feel his aura, how powerful was that? Since she had such a powerful strength, how could she be controlled by the Dark Parliament? Thinking of this, the vigilance in Chiyu's heart couldn't help but become even stronger and said in a deep voice, Who exactly are you? Langnier pursed her lips and said, Why are you so fierce? I specially came to the Yanhuang Republic to see you. Is this your attitude? Looking at her wronged look, no matter how vigilant Chiyu was, he really couldn't say anything cold. He helplessly said, All right, I was wrong. But Miss Langnier, don't you feel that the feeling you gave me is too shocking? Who exactly are you? If I guess correctly, I was able to leave the Dark Parliament back then because of you. Since you saved me before, I really hope to be able to treat you as a friend. But if I don't even know who you are, how can I rest assured to treat you as a friend? Langnier glared at Chiyu and said, Do you think I'm that Athena of yours? I'm not as bad as she is. Hearing this, Chiyu's expression suddenly changed. He suddenly stood up from his seat and said coldly, How do you know about me and Yamu? At this moment, the waiter just happened to come over and put the drinks they ordered on the table. Looking at Chiyu's unfriendly expression, the waiter couldn't help but have a strange look in his eyes. After putting down the drinks and leaving, he muttered to himself, Men nowadays, they have such a beautiful girlfriend, but they still aren't satisfied and can actually get angry. Really? Langnier looked at the frowning Chiyu and waved her hand at him. All right, you can sit down first. Of course, I'm here for something. You'll know who I am once I'm done talking. Don't you think it's very rude to treat a girl like this? Chiyu took a deep breath. After all, Yamu could be said to be the eternal pain in his heart. Suddenly being mentioned by the other party, coupled with the fact that Langnier was too mysterious in his heart, he had such an extreme reaction. At this moment, hearing Langnier's words, he gradually restrained the emotions in his heart and slowly sat back in his original seat, a faint light flashing in his eyes. He tried to maintain his calm and said, "All right, then I will wait for your explanation. Since you know so many things, I must have done something superfluous back then in the Dark Parliament, right?" Lingere smiled slightly and said, "How can you say that? I'm also very grateful to you. At the very least, it proves that you have a kind heart. In the past, I have never liked kind people, but I don't know why. After you saved me, the feeling you gave me was completely different. Even when you took away the lotus that helped me cultivate, I was not angry. In the end, I even let you go." By now, Chiyu had understood many things. Since Lingere was able to make decisions in the Dark Parliament, it was clear how high her position was. At least in the Dark Parliament, her position was only slightly lower than that of the Dark Parliament. "Then may I ask, young lady, what is your position in the Dark Parliament? Are you the daughter of the Dark Parliament's leader or his woman?" Chiyu's eyes were cold as he looked at Lingere. Lingere snorted disdainfully and said, "Him? Is he worthy? I do not belong to the Dark Parliament, but I can control everything there. If I tell you like this, can you understand?" A murderous glint flashed in his eyes. Chiyu said in a low voice, "Then, when you captured the Emperor Heart, Snow Lotus King, you were the one who ordered it to be done?" Lingere was taken aback for a moment. "I ordered it?" Lingere was taken aback. She said, "I ordered him? I hadn't even been to the Dark Council back then." The killing intent in Chiyu's eyes intensified. "You're lying. If that's the case, why are you cultivating with the help of the Emperor Heart Snowy Lotus King, and not the other members of the Dark Council?" Lingere's eyes flashed with anger. "This is the first time someone has doubted my words. There was no need for me to lie at all. So what if I did it? The reason the Dark Parliament gave me the Snow Lotus was because he discovered that the energy it emitted could play a certain supporting role in my cultivation. If it weren't for that lotus, I wouldn't have joined the Dark Parliament. As for how they got that lotus, I have no idea at all." Chiyu's mind power was very strong. Looking into the other party's eyes, it was easy to discern the truth of the other party's words. However, the Lingere in front of him was too mysterious, especially when there was no trace of energy emitting from her body. This made Chiyu's heart even more uncertain, and he would not believe her words. "No matter what, you and the Dark Council are one. But the Dark Council harmed the Emperor Heart Snowy Lotus King's family. At least we can't be friends. If you came to kill me or want me to do something for you, then you can go. Or you can do it now." Lingere looked at Chiyu's cold eyes. The corners of her mouth slightly curled up. The aggrieved light in her eyes made Chiyu's heart soften. But only for a moment. He absolutely would not let himself be lost again because of a woman. Coldly snorting, he said, "Whatever you say, what do you want to do now? You can say it." Lingere took a deep breath, calming the anger in her heart. She calmed the anger in her heart. Since young, she had been spoiled, and this was the first time a man treated her with such an attitude. The gentleness that Chiyu used to treat her had disappeared. Looking at this despicable guy in front of her, she wanted to kill him immediately. But it was just a thought. Every time she thought of how Chiyu protected her in the Dark Council, she could not harden her heart. "Well, if that's the case, then I'll be straightforward. This time, I came to the Yinhuang Republic not to kill you, nor do I want you to do anything for us. If I wanted to kill you, I would have done it back in the Dark Council. Why would I wait until now? At the same time, I have no intention of asking you to do anything. I just think that you are a good person, so I want to cooperate with you. With our strong alliance, it will be much easier to do anything in this world. I know that those people in Greece and the Vatican have caused great harm to you. Regrettably, I thought that with your strength, even if you could not defeat them, you would at least be able to protect yourself. But who knew that you would be in a desperate situation because of a woman? When I found out about everything, it was too late, even if I wanted to rush over, so you almost lost your life. But now it's different. Not only have you recovered your previous strength, but you're even stronger than before. If we cooperate now, you can immediately return to Europe with me. With our help, we will definitely be able to sweep away all the obstacles in the shortest time possible. Athena is nothing. If you want, you can totally make her surrender to you." Yu looked at Lung Er, who was in front of him, and could not believe that such words came from the mouth of a girl with such a beautiful appearance. But when Lung Er said this, her expression was still so gentle, and there was not a trace of fierceness. The feeling that she gave Yu was terrifying. At this moment, although Lung Er was still very attractive, Yu was already immune to her. Yu took a sip of beer and said indifferently, "Then how do you want me to cooperate with you? I think that in this world, there is no free lunch. Since you are willing to help me sweep away the obstacles, then you must want something from me." Lung Er nodded and said, "You are really smart. It feels good to talk to a smart person. We naturally do not have any conditions to help you. However, as a partner, if we need your help, we hope that you can help us without any conditions, just like we do." Yu looked at her coldly and said, "Then what might you need my help in the future? Since you want to cooperate with me, you should at least let me know what the content of the cooperation is." Of course, Lung Er didn't think that Yu was going to agree to her proposal, but she still explained, "Yes, the power we possess is greater than you can imagine, although you are already very strong. However, your strength is only comparable to 2 feared demon kings at most. If 3 feared demon kings appear at the same time, you won't be able to contend against them. I mean the demon king of fear on this level, not the real demon king of fear. After all, the power they could exert in this world was extremely limited. If it's a real feared demon king, I'm afraid that with your current strength, you won't even be able to defeat one of them. However, the reason why we chose to cooperate with you is because of our personal relationship. I like you." Hearing Lung Er say that she liked him, Yu did not feel any excitement. Instead, a look of disgust appeared in his eyes. Wasn't Yama the same? Although the way they expressed it was different, the meaning they wanted to express was exactly the same. What was the final result? Even the successor of Goddess Athena could trap him like that, let alone this woman from the Dark Parliament. "I'm sorry, I already have my own woman. Is there any other reason?" Yu said calmly. Lung Er looked at Yu and said, "Of course I know that you already have a woman. However, this doesn't conflict with me liking you. As for the other reasons, it's even simpler. First, it's because we can see that you are an absolute powerhouse in the East. At the same time, you have a lot of power in the East, which is what we need. After all, we are not familiar with the East of this world. Secondly, we are interested in the potential that you have. I can clearly see that although your current strength can't be said to be the strongest in the universe, one day, you will become a super powerhouse in this world. Your potential is so great that you are the strongest I have ever seen. Are these 2 reasons enough?" Taotaro National Day Special Update. Chapter 243. Lung Er said very frankly, "If you want to understand it that way, there's nothing wrong with that. When our power is fully displayed, even the Vatican and Greece in the West won't be able to stop us. When the West is unified, we will naturally have to turn our attention to the vast East. Although it's very easy for us to deal with everything with our strength, we are not familiar with the East, and we really need a guide. And the cooperation I'm talking about is that I hope you can be this guide. At the same time, I also hope that you can join us and become one of us." Chiyu's eyes lit up. "You want me to become a member of the Dark Parliament? Don't you think it's ridiculous?" Lung Er was already somewhat unable to control her emotions. "Ridiculous? I don't think it's ridiculous at all, because I have never wanted you to join the Dark Parliament. As long as you are willing to join us, I can give you more power than the Dark Parliament, and I can also further improve your strength so that you have the power to control this world. When this world is completely under our control, I can even make you the sole ruler of this world. Are these generous conditions not enough to move me?" Although Yu looked calm on the surface, a storm was set off in his heart. Lung Er's tone was too big, not to mention that she just said that she could sweep the West under the protection of the Vatican and Yamu, but she could simply decide to let him be the ruler after they unified everything. This was enough to prove how terrifying her identity was. Even if it was just a temporary lie, she needed a strong backing to let her decide the entire world's problems in such a relaxed tone. Seeing that Yu did not speak, the light in Lung Er's eyes became even more gentle. She stretched out a slender palm, using her soft hand to hold Chi-Yu's hand that was holding the beer bottle, and said softly, "Do you know why I did this? Because your figure has long been imprinted in the depths of my heart. When you did not forget to protect me under the threat of the feared Demon King, my heart was already filled with you. So, I am willing to do all this for you, and not use any means of threat to make you surrender." Indeed, in a sense, if not for Lung-Er, the Covenant of Darkness would have already destroyed the huge threat that was Chi-Yu. If it weren't for Lung-Er, Chi-Yu wouldn't have been able to rush to London at the last moment to save Christy and Ming-Ming. Chi-Yu's gaze softened. The hand that Lung-Er held on to felt very comfortable. This was something he had to admit. "Yes, you did let me go that time. He also gave me some very important information. However, I can't become your puppet just because of this." Lung-Er was a little anxious. She held on to Chi-Yu's hand tightly. "How could it be a puppet? You still don't understand what I've said? I want you to be my husband. Then let us control this world together. Are you afraid that your wife will harm you? As for your lovers, I won't hurt them. I just want them to be your women. However, the one who can truly be your wife can only be me." When she said this, Chi suddenly felt that Lung-Er was looking down on him, as if he should feel honored to be his wife. This feeling made him very uncomfortable. "Lung-Er, no matter what, I owe you a favor. So, when you're around, I can take a step back. I can back down once, I can even help you once. However, it's impossible for you to covet the East. As the guardian of the East, I will never allow anyone to threaten the East. Although I don't know what your organization is doing, I can be sure that if the East falls into your hands, it will bring a huge disaster to the East. As for the West, I won't care, nor am I willing to care. It's not within my jurisdiction. Whether it's the Greeks or the Vatican, they have nothing to do with me. If you're willing to touch them, I'm very happy. However, it's impossible for the East. If you really want to harm the East, then we can only be enemies. I will destroy all of you here at all costs." Towards the end, Chi-Yu's voice was resolute and decisive, leaving no room for negotiation. Chi-Yu looked at Lung-Er and thought about what she said. It was impossible for him to have any chance to cooperate with her anymore. After all, no matter what Lung-Er had done for him, she belonged to the Dark World after all. As the guardian of the East, as the heir of Kirin's bloodline, even if she belonged to the West, he couldn't abandon the dignity of the guardian of the East. Lung-Er looked at Chi-Yu, let go of her hand, and said indifferently, "Don't you want to marry me?" Chi-Yu shook his head and said ruthlessly, "I don't want to. I can't give all my lovers a title, and I can't let their emotions suffer anymore. Because of what happened with Yamu, I decided that from then on, I would never have another woman. It's not that I don't want to, but I can't and I don't want to, because I don't want to see my lovers hurt because of me, even a little bit." A cold light flashed in Lung-Er's eyes. "Aren't you afraid that I will kill them? You should know that I have that kind of strength." Chi-Yu snorted coldly. "If you really do that, you will regret it." "What a joke! I have lived for so long, and I have never known what regret is." "Chi-Yu, don't you want to know who I am?" "Well, I will tell you now. I think, after you know who I am, maybe you will change your mind." As she said that, Lung-Er flipped her palm over, her palm facing upwards. A black aura floated above her palm, slowly condensing into a pair of black wings. From the looks of it, it was exactly the same as the wings on the back of the Great Demon King, just that it was in a smaller form. Chi-Yu's heart skipped a beat as he asked in astonishment, "Could it be that you are also in existence like the terrifying Great Demon King?" Lung-Er shook her head and said indifferently, "They are just my subordinates. In your Eastern language, my surname is Sa. My full name should be Sa Lung-Er. Coming from the real hell, having a subordinate like the Great Demon King, surnamed Sa." The light in Chi-Yu's eyes was filled with shock. What relationship do you have with the legendary Lord of Hell, Satan?" Lung-Er smiled sweetly and said, "You finally remembered? We are not an organization, but a plane, and this plane is called Hell. The Great Demon King Satan that you're talking about is my father. I am his only daughter, the Princess of Hell, Sa Lung-Er." "Princess of Hell?" Chi looked at Lung-Er in shock. Although he already had a high estimation of Lung-Er's identity, he did not expect it to be so powerful. Satan's daughter. and even said that she wanted to marry him. With her identity, it was already comparable to the divinity that Yamu inherited. Moreover, she was not the power of inheritance, but the real Satan's daughter, demon's daughter. Such an identity. And what she said about ruling the entire world was easy to understand. Chiyu thought of 4 words, and that was, hell descends. You guys want to come to the human realm? Chiyu's voice became a little hoarse. Ling'er said, why not? This has always been my father's wish, and this moment is coming soon. Her eyes flashed with hope as she looked at Chiyu. She continued, now, will you change your decision? I think that no matter how confident you are in your own strength, you can't possibly think that you can fight against the entire hell with just your strength. Not even the entire hell, just my guardian angel is not something you can handle. He has already descended into this world, and he is not like the great demon king who only sent a portion of his power. With all of his power, he is at least the strongest person in this world. Chiyu quietly looked at Ling'er, all sorts of thoughts surging in his mind. His silence did not last for too long. It's a pity. Whether you're the daughter of God or the daughter of Satan, it has nothing to do with me. I won't take back what I've said. No matter what you do in the West, whether it is hell descending or ruling the West, it has nothing to do with me. However, if you threaten the East, then please step over my dead body. A sharp aura emanated from Chiyu's body. It was the power of the Xianyuan sword. The huge amount of energy was confined to a small area, enveloping Ling'er's delicate body. Ling'er looked at Chiyu, her beautiful eyes filled with disappointment. She did not even resist the aura that Chiyu emitted. She lightly shook her head. Do you think that this will solve everything? This time, since I have come, I have my own mission. Although I love you, if you threaten our world, then I will not hesitate to kill you. Think about it carefully. I will give you one more day. I hope you can change your mind. Otherwise, I will wait for you at the Tianxiang Mountain in the capital. If you don't come, then the capital will be destroyed. Standing up, Ling'er did not even take a sip of the Blue Mountain coffee in front of her. She turned and left the cafe. Chiyu's heart sank as he watched her figure filled with sorrow. What kind of powerhouse was the Princess of Hell? Could he really defeat Ling'er? Chiyu did not know. He did not know at all. However, at the same time, he had no intention of retreating. If she wanted to fight, then let's fight. At least, he would not embarrass the Eastern Guardian. At this moment, Chiyu could not help but feel that his power was somewhat insignificant. He even thought to himself, why didn't the god of the East descend to the human world? The burden on my shoulders has become heavier. Just as Master Zagru had said, what I have to face is not only everything in the East, but also the entire world that can threaten the East. Still sitting in the cafe, Chiyu did not leave his seat for a long time. The beer bottle in his hand was already empty. When he stood up from his seat, the light in his eyes became even more resolute, incomparably resolute. As the owner of the Xianyuan sword, I will not be afraid of anything. What will come will come. Ling'er, let me see everything you have. Let me see what the true power of hell is. Taking firm steps, Chiyu left the cafe and found a dark corner to hide. Since a great battle was imminent, he needed to make use of every moment to cultivate. Returning to the Dragon Field courtyard, Chiyu did not even enter from the front door. Instead, he flew directly through the window and returned to his room. He told Snow Girl, who had already returned, that he was going to cultivate behind closed doors and not let anyone disturb him until tomorrow night. When Chiyu had just begun his cultivation, 2 guests had already arrived at the Dragon Field courtyard. Uncle Zhou led them to the villa's hall. He did not know that Chiyu had already returned, so he directly told Snow Girl about the arrival of guests. It was none other than Qi Tianlei and Ying Xiaodai. Their efficiency has always been very high. An examination center had been especially busy for the whole afternoon for Chiyu's blood. Using all kinds of cutting-edge testing methods, they compared the blood samples of Chiyu and Qi Tianlei. In the end, there was only one result. Although Chiyu's blood was somewhat different from ordinary people, it was completely certain that his blood was exactly the same as Qi Tianlei's blood. This naturally proved the relationship between them. Miss Snow Girl. Chi Tianlei could not wait to greet Snow Girl, who was coming down from upstairs. Snow Girl saw them and couldn't help but ask with some surprise, "Is the result out? Please sit down." Ing Shaodai hurriedly came in front of Snow Girl and said, "No, we won't sit. Where's Chi? We asked him to come down to see us. The result is already out. It turns out that he really is our son. My poor child." At this point, Ing Shaodai was already sobbing. 20 years ago, their business had already had a lot of momentum. Under the husband and wife's united efforts, the company had the embryonic form of the Golden Grain Group. It was also at this time that they were overjoyed with Lin Lin. Just when they were at the peak of their excitement, they lost their son, who was not even a month old. All along, Chi Tianlei and Ing Shaodai had spent a lot of effort in the process of searching for Chiyu, but to no avail. They even searched abroad. This process lasted for a full 5 years. Updated on Tao Turo's National Day. Although they were unwilling to give up, the result was cruel. There was no news of their son in the end. And on this day, when they no longer had any illusions, their son suddenly appeared in front of them, alive. And because of their suspicions, their son was wronged again. At this moment, the husband and wife were extremely excited and complicated. They could not wait to see Chiyu and tell him the good news. They also hoped to be able to compensate Chiyu at all times. They wanted to use any method to impose the familial love that they had owed him for 20 years on their son. Although they were unwilling to give up, the result was cruel. There was no news of their son in the end. And on this day, when they no longer had any illusions, their son suddenly appeared in front of them, alive. And because of their suspicions, their son was wronged again. At this moment, the husband and wife were extremely excited and complicated. They could not wait to see Chiyu and tell him the good news. They also hoped to be able to compensate Chiyu at all times. They wanted to use any method to impose the familial love that they had owed him for 20 years on their son. When Snow Girl heard Ing Xiaodia's words, she could not help but be overjoyed. "Really? That's great. Chiyu will definitely be very happy. That's great. Chiyu has parents." She could not help but jump in excitement. Chiyu had parents. Then, he was no longer an orphan. She could not be more familiar with the feeling of losing parents, especially for an orphan like Chiyu who had not been loved by his parents since he was young. When his biological parents appeared, how excited would he be? "Uncle, Auntie, wait a moment. I'll help you call him." With that said, Snow Girl turned and ran upstairs. She had only run a few steps when she subconsciously stopped. There was a trace of hesitation in her eyes. "Sorry, Uncle, Annie. Just now, Chiyu told me that he will be meditating for a period of time until tomorrow night. Since you were his parents, I'm not afraid to tell you that Chiyu is not an ordinary person. He needs to cultivate." Chi Tianlei and Ing Shaodai could not help but be greatly disappointed. Chi Tianlei hurriedly said, "Can't he cultivate for a day less? It was not easy for us to find him. I really hope that our family can be reunited as soon as possible." Snow Girl softly sighed. "Uncle, to be honest, it should be Chiyu who found you. After you left today, he was in a very bad mood. Moreover, he is most afraid of being disturbed when he is cultivating." Ing Shaodai wanted to say something, but was stopped by Chi Tianlei, who gently shook his head. Ing Shaodai wanted to say something, but was stopped by Chi Tianlei, who shook his head gently. "We've already waited for so long. Do we still care about this day? Shaodai, let's go back. We already owe our son too much. Are we going to let him take the risk of injuring his body to acknowledge us? Furthermore, since our son has appeared, we have to go back and make arrangements. We must repay him double what belongs to our son." Right now, Chi Tianlei and Ing Shaodai were very impulsive. If Chiyu was in front of them, they would even find a way to get the moon for him. To them, Chiyu's appearance was akin to having a son in their old age. The greatest regret in his life would be made up for. They were even willing to use every minute of the rest of their lives to make up for the 20 years they owed Chiyu. Even though Ing Shaodai was reluctant. However, she and Chi Tianlei were indeed tycoons in the business world, and they were able to control their emotions very well. Taking a deep breath, she wiped the tears on her face and gently nodded. "Yes. We can't disturb him anymore. Let's wait for him to wake up." Tianlei, do you think you will forgive us? Chi Tianlei gently hugged his wife's waist and smiled. He will. He definitely will. After all, our blood flows in his body. If he doesn't forgive us, he won't take the initiative to look for us. I will do my best to make up for everything he has lost. I think as long as he knows the truth, he will definitely forgive us for our mistakes. After so many years, we can finally break free from the pain of losing our son. Our child, we will wait for you. Chi was cultivating in his room and did not know anything about the outside world. Now, when he was cultivating, in order to pursue the best effect, he would completely withdraw his spiritual power and wholeheartedly direct the thundercloud force in his body to operate and absorb the energy molecules in the air. Because the natural energy of modern times was far less than that of the ancient beasts. Therefore, what Chi was cultivating now was naturally not his natural source, but the four types of thundercloud force that were the origin of Kirin of the four auspicious clouds. There was only one day left, and it was obviously impossible for him to improve to the eighth cloud. There was still a huge difference between the seventh cloud and the eighth cloud. It was not something that could be completed in a short period of time. However, Chiyu also had his ways to make this day not a waste. During the ancient beasts, when he used his powerful spiritual power and the energy of the natural source to help everyone absorb the essence of heaven and earth in the frozen spring, he also absorbed the most. Although Chiyu did not pay much attention at that time, as the body of the natural source, his body naturally filtered and absorbed the essence of the frozen spring, leaving behind a large amount of energy essence. Although the energy in the frozen spring was almost very pure and peaceful, it existed in the form of water elements, after all. Therefore, in this peaceful energy, although the attributes were very small, it was pure water elements, which were more inclined to the water attribute. Therefore, after absorbing the energy, the Luo family in the Zodiac army had the most obvious improvement in strength. Their abilities were of the water attribute. At this time, Chi was cultivating the water thundercloud force, which was one of the four types of thundercloud force that he had. When he was cultivating during the ancient beasts era, Chi had already discovered that his water thundercloud force was much stronger than the other types of thundercloud force because of the energy in the frozen spring. Moreover, he did not completely absorb the water attribute aura in the frozen spring, because he hoped that his four types of thundercloud force could be cultivated at the same time. That way, the effect would be better when he cultivated as a whole. However, it was different now. In order to obtain more energy in a short time, Chiyu decided to cultivate his water thundercloud force as much as possible. Today, Chiyu decided to cultivate his water thundercloud force as much as possible. Although the improvement of a single type of thundercloud force could not improve his overall strength, it could at least make a breakthrough in one type of thundercloud force. Of course, it was impossible to achieve this through cultivation alone. However, it would be different if he could absorb the energy and transform it into his thundercloud force. Therefore, what Chi was doing now was to completely absorb the water attribute aura left by the frozen spring and assimilate it with his water thundercloud force to see to what extent his strength could be improved. His mental strength was divided into two parts according to the ratio of 2 to 8. 20% of his mental strength was responsible for completely converging the other energy in his dantian and condensing it as much as possible, while the remaining 80% of his mental strength was completely used on the water thundercloud force. At this time, in his jade-green meridians formed by the source of nature, there was a flowing blue liquid. What flowed was a completely blue liquid. It was the enormous concentrated form of water cloud power. While absorbing the water element molecules in the air, Chiyu quickly absorbed every part of the aura of the frozen spring that spread in his body. Relying on this absorption, he clearly felt that the water thundercloud force in his body became colder and colder. With the help of the source of nature, the cold aura gradually transformed into his own water thundercloud force, making the water thundercloud force in the process of constantly strengthening. When the cultivation was on the right track, Chiyu entered a meditative state. Only in this way could he better absorb and transform the energy. This absorption and transformation process had long been completely controlled by his mental strength under his deliberate arrangement. He did not need to pay more attention to it, and it could still achieve the same effect, or even better. After a whole day of cultivation, Chi used his mental strength to set a time similar to a biological clock. When he woke up from the cultivation, the sky outside was dark blue, and it was just the evening of the next day. One day, a whole day of cultivation. At this time, Chi was full of surprise, because he was surprised to find that the water thundercloud force in his body had actually changed qualitatively. The originally blue liquid had turned into an icy green color, and the speed at which it flowed was noticeably slower. Within the icy white liquid, there were many very faint blue particles like small blue beads flowing in the liquid. The speed of the flow had changed, but Chiyu knew that his water thundercloud force had become more condensed than before. The feeling of being full of water attribute had greatly nourished all the meridians in his body. It should be known that there were two things that plants needed the most. One was sunlight, and the other was water. Therefore, the improvement of the water thundercloud force in Chiyu's body also imperceptibly expanded his source of nature energy. Under the effect of these two mutually reinforcing energies, the biggest benefit that he obtained was the substantial improvement of his own recovery ability. Kirin's marrow washing and tendon changing technique that the source of nature and the water thundercloud force could perform could quickly heal the body's injuries. The simultaneous improvement of these two abilities immediately improved Chi-Yu's self-healing ability by a whole level. At the same time, although Chi-Yu was not completely sure, the change in the quality of his water thundercloud force made him understand that one of his four thundercloud force, the softest thundercloud force, was very likely to have been upgraded to the 8-cloud realm. The difference between 8-cloud and 7-cloud was also like the difference between clouds and mud. After being upgraded to 8-cloud, he was more confident in the upcoming battle. The energy in the icy spring was indeed miraculous. Just a small portion of the water attribute energy was able to increase his strength by a whole level. In fact, Chiyu did not know that when he was controlling his mental strength to help everyone absorb the energy in the icy spring, he had subconsciously shielded the energy in the icy spring that was not suitable for everyone to absorb and slowly transformed it in his body. The energy in the icy spring was extremely cold, so it was naturally not easy for everyone to absorb. Therefore, at that time, all the water attribute thundercloud force in the icy spring was naturally kept in his body. Otherwise, Qilin would need an enormous amount of energy to advance from 7 clouds to 8 clouds. How could it be completed in a single night? A faint light flickered, and Chiyu's body turned into a faint ice blue color, just like when Snow Girl used her energy. The water thundercloud force circulated, and everything in his body became very comfortable. Slowly standing up, Chiyu looked to the west. In the west of the capital was Tianxiang Mountain. He had been there more than once, but he did not expect Lung Er to choose that place again. Even now, Chiyu had not completely recovered from the shock of Lung Er's identity. Satan's daughter, the daughter of the legendary Great Devil King of Hell. From Lung Er's words, it was clear that her strength was definitely above that of the Great Devil King. The 3 Great Devil Kings had once left an extremely deep impression on Chiyu. However, he was not afraid. At that time, he mainly relied on the Xianyuan sword and the Thousand Changes Xuanji realm technique. However, it was different now. With these 2 powerful abilities, he already had the starry crimson golden armor. That kind of amplification was not the same as before. In addition, his strength had truly increased to the 7-cloud level. Even if he were to face the 3 Dreadlords again, Chiyu would not have the slightest bit of fear. Although Lung Er had a very high opinion of Chiyu, there was still a certain gap between her and his true strength. This was also the biggest thing that Chiyu relied on. Opening the window, Chiyu took a deep breath of the cool evening air and floated up into the night sky. Just as he left, a limousine drove into the Dragonfield courtyard. Perhaps it was a joke from the heavens. Chiyu and his family of 3 missed out once again. And this mist was not something that could be seen in a day or two. Chi did not know that Chi Tianlei and his wife had completely acknowledged him and were thinking of ways to make up for what they owed him. At this moment, his heart was heavy. In today's battle, he not only represented himself, but also the entire Eastern Guardian. He absolutely could not lose. Otherwise, if he failed, he would be destroyed by Lung Er. In the future, who in the East could lead everyone to face the challenge from hell? A faint divine light shone from Chi Yu's eyes. He did not use Kirin's mutation. Instead, he released the golden-winged eagle's wings on his back. Under the effect of Kirin's concealment, he flew at a speed of 90,000 miles and headed towards Tianxiang Mountain. Right now, it was very important for him to save even a little bit of energy. Although the capital was huge, with Chi Yu's ability to fly across continents, he arrived above Tianxiang Mountain in less than a minute. Lung Er stood quietly at the top of Tianxiang Mountain's Ghost Worry Peak. At this moment, the sky was completely dark. As a famous tourist spot in the capital, there were no more tourists. Even the staff had already gone home to rest. Taotaro National Day Special Update. Chapter 244. Floating in the air, Chi Yu saw Lung Er. Today, Lung Er's attire was completely different. She was wearing a pink gauze dress, which outlined her perfect figure under the mountain breeze. Looking at Lung Er's calm expression, Chi Yu could not help but recall the first time he met her. Lung Er's body was full of extreme temptation. Chi Yu was not a saint. That kind of intense stimulation had always left a deep impression in his mind. If not for so many things that happened later, he would have really saved Lung Er at the Dark Parliament. Satan's daughter, it was really an incredible thing. Chi naturally did not know how Lung Er came to this world. However, he was sure that the West was about to undergo a huge change. Athena's divine power had been completely inherited by Yamu, and Satan's daughter had appeared in the human world. He was afraid that the West would not be peaceful soon. In comparison, the East was much better. At least, the troubles that he encountered were during the ancient behemoth era, not in the modern world. He didn't know why, but when he thought of this, he suddenly had a bad feeling, as if something would happen in the near future. Lung Er, who had changed her attire, looked even gentler. Her long pink wavy hair fluttered behind her back. That alluring face would probably make any man's heart beat faster. It was different from the holy aura of Yamu. Lung Er was full of extreme temptation. Even Chi Yu unconsciously had the thought of keeping her as his exclusive property. However, after so many things, Chi Yu's heart had already become a lot harder. It was not something that could be moved by beauty. He had grown up and was already a real Kirin. Lung Er slowly raised her head and looked at the sky. Although Chi Yu was under Kirin's invisibility, her seemingly solid gaze was still locked in the direction where Chi Yu was. Chi Yu did not intend to hide anything. Sensing Lung Er's gaze, he immediately dispelled Kirin's concealment effect and retracted the golden wings on his back. He floated down like a nail and landed 10 meters away from Lung Er. Lung Er looked at Chi Yu calmly, her eyes as gentle as water. There were many complicated emotions in her eyes. There was sadness, there was hope, there was also a trace of fear. Although Lung Er did not say anything, but her big, expressive eyes were already asking Chi Yu for the final result. Gently shaking his head, Chi Yu sighed and said, "I'm sorry." Lung Er nodded and said, "I understand. Whether it's you humans or us demons, we all have our own ideas. It's not wrong for you to stick to your beliefs. It's a pity that I can't leave such a powerful opponent for my people. Your potential for growth is too great. In time, if you insist on going against us, you will definitely become the most terrifying enemy. That's definitely not what we want to see. So, today I can only destroy you." Destroying possible opponents when cooperation was not possible had always been a common practice in Hell. Lung Er was no exception. Since young, she had been influenced by what she saw and heard, and it had long been deeply rooted in the depths of her soul. Chi Yu looked at Lung Er and laughed bitterly. "I really don't want to fight you. Even though I hate the Dark Parliament, I still owe you a lot. You saved me before, so it's hard for me to have any real killing intent towards you." Lung Er snorted and said, "At this time, you're actually afraid to fight?" Chi shook his head and said, "No, I'm not afraid to fight you. I just don't want to hurt you." "What a joke." Lung laughed. Although her gaze was still gentle, her laughter was filled with coldness. "Don't think too highly of yourself. Even if you're an expert from the East, in my eyes, your strength is far from enough. At least for now, you still can't pose a real threat to us." Pink light floated up and dyed Lung delicate body, making her look even more dazzling. That gentle gaze, that alluring figure, all of them had a great impact on Chi vision. Chi did not dare to close his eyes, because Lung was not an ordinary enemy. She had the ability to escape the detection range of his mental power. Taking a deep breath, the golden rock wings on his back retracted into his body. A faint layer of black light rose from Chi body. Facing an opponent like Lung whose true strength was unknown, he immediately activated his Kirin's origin energy. Feeling Kirin's aura, Lung took a deep breath. As expected, no wonder the woman who inherited Athena's divine power wanted to harm you. The energy on your body is extremely attractive to both gods and demons. I've heard of a story from the East. The main character of the story is a man called Tang Sung. It is said that eating his flesh will allow one to live forever. And now, you're like Tang Sung. Although eating his flesh won't grant you immortality, the extremely pure natural energy on your body is extremely beneficial to both gods and demons. As long as they can absorb the energy on your body, it will be extremely beneficial to both gods and demons. The light in Chi eyes became colder. "So, you're also thinking the same?" Lung snorted disdainfully. "Do you think I'm that woman? She's just a human, yet she inherited Athena's divine power. In the end, she's still a human. How could I be the same as her? I have many, many ways to raise my strength. Although your aura is good, but if I am willing to marry you because of that, then you're underestimating me, Lung too much. There's no point in saying all this now. Make your move. Let me see what makes you think that you can harm me." Looking at Lung Chi slowly took a step forward. With just one step, his aura had completely changed. At this moment, he was like a sharp sword, the energy on his body combined with the powerful energy undulations. According to the battle method that Emperor Huang had taught him, he formed a huge pressure on Lung The extremely sharp energy only surrounded Lung but it did not affect the surrounding environment at all. Feeling the aura on Chi body, Lung expression changed slightly. "You're indeed stronger than I expected. In this world, you're indeed an outstanding talent. It's a pity that your energy is still not enough." The pink light slightly spread out. Lung also slowly took a step forward. The energy on her body slightly contracted in this step. In this short moment, although he was facing Lung and the pink energy on her body, to Chi it was as if he was facing a huge black hole. The energy on Lung body was not strong, but was filled with the feeling of being devoured. It was as if the surrounding force field had disappeared, and the energy on her body had become the center of the world. Under the influence of Lung black, hole-like energy, Chi powerful aura disappeared. In that instant, Chi upper body involuntarily leaned forward, and his expression changed. So strong. That was the only feeling that Chi had. Although they had not made a move in that instant, he knew that he had already lost to Lung The aura on his body was completely retracted. Lung did not follow up with another attack, and Chi did not make a move either. The two of them faced each other, emitting a pink and black aura respectively. "Why don't you make a move?" Lung asked calmly. Chi sighed and said, "I can't take the initiative to attack you. You should make the first move." Lung smiled and looked at him charmingly. "At least you still have some conscience. Chi, I'll give you one more chance. It's not too late to regret. Just now, I saw a pair of wings appear on your back when you arrived. It also appeared when you were fighting against the Terror Demon Kings. This means that you have already comprehended the ability to use wings to increase your strength. This is also one of the characteristics that allows you to surpass ordinary people. In the West, whether it is our hell or the so-called gods in the sky, They all have similar abilities. If you're willing to join our hell faction, I can immediately ask my protector to give you another pair of wings. At that time, your strength will be greatly increased. You already have wings, so you should understand the effects of having another pair of wings. Demon wings, and the most basic of demon wings at that. I believe that they will be very useful to you. Chiyu looked at Ling'er with some surprise. Although they were currently enemies, Ling'er's words still piqued his interest. He naturally knew about wings. However, this was the first time he had heard that wings could be bestowed. He couldn't help but ask curiously, could it be that you demons can casually bestow wings to your subordinates? If that was the case, with your abilities, you wouldn't need my help at all. Ling'er said exasperatedly. Do you think that's an ability that anyone can casually obtain? Bestow wings can be done by gods and demons. However, it takes a great deal of energy and great damage to one's body in order to do so. Bestow a pair of wings means losing a wing, which is equivalent to losing the power of a wing. You must understand that it is extremely difficult to rely on your own cultivation to raise a wing. It will take a long time. At the same time, when bestow wings, you can only bestow it to someone 2 ranks lower than you. That's why you can only bestow wings to someone who has more than 2 pairs of wings. If I remember correctly, you already have 2 pairs of wings, and my Hell's Angel can bestow wings to you. When that time comes, you will be like a tiger that has grown wings. Your strength will greatly increase. Hearing Ling'er's words, Chiyu couldn't help but be shocked. Although Ling'er's judgment was wrong, even if he was a 4-winged dreadlord, the ability of her Hell's Angel would be able to reach 8 wings. 8 wings? What kind of concept was that? A 6-winged dreadlord's partial strength was already so terrifying. Ling'er said that her guardian angel came to this world in its complete form, and even had 8 wings. This kind of strength was almost unimaginable. Chiyu's eyes flashed. He kept thinking about how he could win today's battle. Ling'er saw that Chiyu was deep in thought, and thought that he was already moved by the increase in strength. After all, some people might not be interested in power, but they would be very happy with the condition of greatly increasing their strength. She was secretly happy, thinking that she had already given Chiyu what he liked, and that it would be effective. This is already the limit of what I can do. Of course, this is only the first help I can give you. If we get married in the future, my father will not mistreat you. I can even beg my father to sacrifice some of his strength to help you become an 8-winger. That way, you'll be second only to one person in hell and above everyone else. Wouldn't it be a piece of cake to rule this world? Think about it carefully. Even if you want to destroy a city, you will only need to wave your hand. Isn't this enough to show the sincerity of hell? To be honest, Chiyu was a little tempted to let the great Satan bestow him with great strength. After all, even he didn't know what kind of ability he should have. Although Kirin was the most important, ever since he obtained the source of nature, his ability was no longer just Kirin. The energy brought by the Xianyuan sword had greatly changed his overall strength. At this moment, he was like a powerful hybrid. If he could also get the power of hell, his strength would undoubtedly increase greatly. 8 wings was indeed what Chiyu yearned for, but unfortunately, he couldn't pay that price. Ling'er, to be honest, I also want that kind of strength, but I can't go against my heart. I can't give up everything I have now just to improve my strength, Chiyu said calmly. Ling'er said disapprovingly, that's very simple. What do you have now? It won't take long. Give me a day, and I can completely destroy everything you have now. No, Chiyu roared. Does hell only know how to destroy? If that's the case, we can only be mortal enemies. Why do I hate Yamu and the Vatican so much? It's because they hurt my family. You can threaten me, or even kill me. But if you threaten my family, then you will face an enemy who will do whatever it takes, regardless of the consequences, and by hook or by crook. When Chiyu uttered the last 3 words, his voice was filled with a cold and stern aura. Even Ling'er, the daughter of the great demon king, could not help but be frightened by his cold and stern voice. All right. I've already told you so much. You can decide now. Don't give me any reasons. Chiyu, do you know that I've lost my patience with you? The pink light on Lung Air's body fluctuated, and she took another step towards the money. This time, Chi didn't think anymore and immediately replied, "There's no need to think. I've already given you the answer yesterday. It's impossible for us to cooperate, because we're not the same kind of people, and we're not on the same side. Although there are certain differences between the East and the West, but I can't betray my faith." Lung Air said angrily, "Faith? What's your faith? Believe it or not, I've even destroyed your faith." Chi smiled and said, "That's very simple. My faith is my own heart. No matter what I do, I have a clear conscience. That's enough for me." Lung Air looked at Chi and was stunned for a moment. "My own heart? That counts as faith. Good, good, good. Chi, looks like you're not willing to give yourself a chance. I've already said so much, but you're still so stubborn. Don't blame me for being ruthless." The pink light became stronger than ever, and Lung Air's wavy hair flowed behind her, forming a pink disc at the back of her head. An enormous energy aura surged towards Chi Yu in an earth-shattering manner. It was different from the aura that Chi Yu was emitting. Lung Air was not only emitting pressure from her aura, but also energy interference. All sorts of negative emotions filled her huge energy aura, suppressing Chi Yu with all her might. As the princess of hell, she had been rejected by Chi Yu many times, and at this time, she was really angry. Under the powerful pressure from Lung Air, Chi Yu could not help but feel angry. Chi Yu had no choice. The black Kirin armor appeared along with the energy fluctuations on his body, and the black and silver Kirin shadow appeared behind him. Clouds gathered in the air, and a huge energy fluctuation enveloped Chi Yu's body. No matter how much pressure Lung Air brought, he was completely enveloped in the energy of his Kirin armor. A faint light flickered, and Chi Yu's eyes shone brightly. His body floated backwards, and his hands crossed in front of his chest. The huge Kirin energy suddenly rose. A ray of silver light shone from his right arm. The Qilin arm was his most powerful weapon. With an angry snort, Lung Air pointed forward with her right hand. Pink energy condensed into ribbons the width of a palm and spread out in all directions. When the pink ribbons reached a certain size, they suddenly enveloped Chi Yu's body. In front of such an attack, Chi Yu had no chance of dodging. A silver light shone, and with the support of the energy of the Kirin arm, the Kirin illusion appeared. In order to deal with the opponent's attack, the Kirin illusion turned into a long sword. Different from the Xianyuan sword, the long sword that Chi Yu transformed was about 1.5 meters long, and the blade was not wide, only about 2 fingers wide. The silver light flickered, and the surging energy suddenly burst out along with the Kirin shadow. Silver light shone in all directions, and Chi Yu moved. Stepping on the Qilin, Chi Yu's illusory figure constantly flickered on the spot. Due to his extreme speed, it was as if countless Chi Yus had appeared on the mountaintop. Rays of silver light shot out from the Qilin's illusory body. Within the faint rays of light, pink energy was constantly brought up. Although it did not cause any destruction, Lung Air's attacks were unable to control Chi Yu. The battle began in the form of energy contact between the two sides. Lung Air stood still, but the pink energy she emitted was extremely agile. Every time the faint pink light fluctuated, it would entangle the body of Chi Yu from different directions. More pink energy was covering the entire space, and the range of Chi Yu's movement was as small as possible. The faint light flickered, and Chi Yu could clearly feel a strange energy fluctuation in the pink energy she emitted. Just like the black hole from before, as long as the Kirin illusion in his hand came into contact with the pink light, a strong suction force would appear, trying to absorb his energy. However, under the effect of the natural source, Chi Yu's energy had already condensed to the extreme. It was definitely not an easy task to absorb such a dense energy. Moreover, when Chi Yu first felt this suction force, he was very careful. Kirin illusion was once the strongest treasure in Kirin's octagon, and its energy was very special. Therefore, after the battle began, although Chi Yu was being suppressed by Lung Air's attacks, he was not at a disadvantage. The pink energy dyed the surrounding darkness, and Lung Er's eyes were already shining like two pink diamonds, shining brightly. The aura she emitted was completely different, and the gentleness in her eyes had disappeared. In her anger, the great power from the hellish realm was gradually revealed. Chi Yu's situation was getting worse and worse. Under the continuous energy emitted by Lung Er, the space around him had been compressed to less than 10 square meters. The pink light was filled with suction force, and Chi Yu did not dare to touch it with his body. Moreover, the pink light was very tough. Although Kirin illusion was very sharp, it was extremely difficult to cut off the energy fluctuations. The pink light seemed to have the ability to remember. Once it was pierced by Kirin illusion, it would immediately link together and attack Chi Yu. Therefore, after a few attempts, Chi Yu could only choose to use the collapse technique to deflect the pink energy. Both of them were probing each other. Because they were not familiar with each other, they did not use their full strength at the start of the battle. At the very least, they wanted to probe each other's energy characteristics before launching a powerful attack. That was the best choice. The huge energy fluctuations caused the sand and stones on the Tianxiang mountain to fly. However, there was an advantage to fighting at their level, and that was because they could compress their energy to the extreme, so not a single bit of it would be wasted. Both of their mental power would only be locked onto their opponent, so the battle had not caused any damage to the Tianxiang mountain. After a short exchange, whether it was Chi Yu or Lung Er, they could not help but secretly praise each other. It was not only a collision of energy, but also a display of skills. Whether it was Lung Er's control of the pink light, or Chi Yu's ingenious defense, both of them had rich combat experience. "Retract," Lung Er suddenly shouted, and the pink light began its final attack. All the pink light suddenly converged towards the center, and the huge energy aura doubled again. This compressed the space that Chi Yu could move in. At this moment, Chi Yu had no way to retreat. Under such an omnidirectional attack, he had no way of escaping in any direction. What should I do? Should I rely on my energy to fight? That was not Chi Yu's choice. Chi Yu had fought against all kinds of opponents many times. He was a true, battle-hardened veteran. Facing Lung Er's sudden all-out attack, he was already prepared. Light flashed, and Lung Er was surprised to find that Chi Yu's figure had disappeared. It was not the effect of invisibility, but Chi Yu had really disappeared. The pink energy collided in the air with a pu sound. Lung Er's control over her energy could be said to be at the pinnacle of perfection. She did not waste any of her energy. After a brief moment of shock, she immediately retracted her energy, minimizing the consumption of her energy. The pink band of light instantly returned to her side, completely protecting her delicate body in case Chi Yu suddenly appeared and launched a sneak attack. However, this time Lung Er was a little too careful. Chi Yu did not attack her at all. When the pink light was withdrawn by Lung Er, Chi Yu's figure appeared again, in the place where he had just disappeared. It turned out that in the face of Lung Er's omnidirectional attack, Chi Yu thought of a good way. When the all-out attack was launched, Chi Yu relied on his tyrannical strength and the energy of Kirin's origin to forcibly break the ground under his feet, causing his body to sink directly, just in time to avoid Lung Er's attack. Of course, he did not hope that this would cause Lung Er to panic and create an opportunity to attack. He only hoped that such a sudden change would cause Lung Er to consume more energy due to the collision. From the beginning of the battle, Chi Yu had already felt that although Lung Er was very strong and her energy was extremely strange, it seemed that her strength was not much stronger than his. Of course, it was because she did not use her full strength, but Chi Yu was still very confident in his estimation. At their level, if there was no way to win a battle by surprise, then it would be a battle of attrition. The one who could make the opponent consume more energy would have a higher chance of winning in the end. Chi Yu had a very high opinion of Lung Er, but he was also very confident in his own strength. Perhaps Lung Er's ability was indeed stronger than his, but he had an advantage that Lung Er did not have, and that was the ability to recover. With the help of the origin of nature, he could absorb a large amount of energy from the air in a short period of time, to replenish his body. In this case, the consumption would naturally be much smaller. Did Lumiere have such an ability? Even if she did, it would not be comparable to his origin of nature. Chiyu did not want to hurt Lumiere, so from the beginning of the battle, he had already decided to fight a battle of attrition. As long as he could exhaust Lumiere's energy, then he would naturally win, and he would not hurt Lumiere. This was obviously the ending that he wanted to see the most. However, would Lumiere let him have such an ending? Seeing that Chiyu had reappeared, the intelligent Lumiere immediately understood what had happened. She coldly snorted and said, "How cunning." Chiyu smiled and said, "Thank you for the compliment. In a battle, I have always advocated using all means possible. As long as I can obtain the final victory, what's wrong with being a little cunning?" At this point, he could not help but feel a little more confident as he looked at Lumiere. Lumiere snorted disdainfully and said, "Do you think that you could defeat me with this little bit of cleverness? Just wait and see." As she said that, her delicate body suddenly floated forward, and the pink light in her eyes suddenly disappeared, returning to her previous gentle look. She smiled sweetly, and her beautiful eyes were full of brilliance. That gaze was full of charm, and Chiyu could not help but be stunned. In that instant, Lumiere had already made her move, but this time she did not use energy attacks. When Chiyu was charmed by her gaze, Lumiere's delicate body suddenly disappeared. Even Klinsmann could use instant transmission, so how could she not? With a flash of light, Lumiere had already appeared behind Chiyu out of thin air, and a pair of slender hands quietly pressed towards Chiyu's back. When Lumiere's figure disappeared, Chiyu had already reacted. His body subconsciously rushed forward, and, at the same time, his left hand was behind his back. In an instant, black and silver light condensed, and the Kirin mirror that had recovered from his origin energy appeared. Its smooth surface met Lumiere's attack. A huge wave of energy appeared in the collision. Chiyu let out a muffled groan, and his body shot forward like a cannonball into the air. Lumiere was shocked to find that there was an extremely strong rebounding force on the Kirin mirror. Although her palms had already pressed against the mirror, most of the force was dissipated by a rotating energy. At the same time, under the effect of the Kirin mirror's origin energy, the rebounding force produced by the Kirin mirror had also caused a certain impact on her body. Tautaro immediately uploaded an update. Chapter 245. A faint light flickered, and Chiyu's eyes shone with a tyrannical light. The energy that Lumiere had injected into his body was very special, as though she had injected a vacuum. Although most of it had been neutralized, there was still about 10% of it that had invaded his meridians. The moment that vacuum-like energy entered Chiyu's body, it did not immediately begin to destroy him. Instead, it frantically absorbed his own energy. Feeling the change in this energy, Chiyu could not help but break out in a cold sweat. He understood that if he allowed this vacuum-like energy to absorb enough of his energy, then the next thing that would happen would be an explosion. If such a huge amount of energy exploded in his body, the destructive effect would be self-evident, and it was something that Chiyu could not withstand. Fortunately, he had already neutralized most of the attack, and the moment he felt that something was wrong, he immediately used the energy of the Xianyuan sword in his body to directly destroy the vacuum. However, in that instant, the energy advantage that Chiyu had obtained through trickery was completely gone. Floating in midair, Chiyu turned around to look at Lumiere and could not help but say, "Didn't you also use trickery? And you were talking about me just now." Lumiere looked at Chiyu in midair and did not know whether to laugh or cry. Was this a battle of life and death? Why did it feel like the two of them were a couple exchanging pointers? There was no tension at all, and instead, it was very relaxed. With her hands on her hips, she glared at Chiyu. "What do you mean by trickery? This is called strength, all right?" Chiyu laughed. "Yes, to you it's called strength. To me, it's called trickery." "All right." Lumiere floated up, and in the blink of an eye, she was already in front of Chiyu. "What are you laughing at? I'm going to kill you. Have you forgotten?" Chiyu smiled bitterly. "How could I forget? I'm not an idiot. If you want to kill me, then kill me. But I can't guarantee that I won't run away. Lung Air's long-lost hooligan habits resurfaced, and her angry look was so cute no matter how one looked at it. Looking at Chiyu, Lung Air knew. If this continued, she would not be able to make up her mind to destroy Chiyu. This hateful fellow had actually caused the killing intent that she had painstakingly gathered to dissipate. Was she going to let him go just like that? No, she could not. At this moment, Lung Air could not help but remember what her father had said. The pink light in her beautiful eyes became stronger again. She shouted in a low voice, and pink light shone from her hands at the same time. It was no longer the pink ribbons from before, but two pink sharp blades. Devil Kiss, one of them 1-1-1. Once you are hit by the Devil's Kiss, your life will be completely devoured and transferred into my body. Chiyu, I will not be lenient. Lung Air shouted, the sharp blades in her hands already vibrating rapidly. Dozens of light figures enveloped Chiyu's body, the huge energy light bringing a pink temptation to the dark sky. Chiyu's heart shivered. Devil's Kiss, just hearing this name, he knew how powerful this magic tool was. Kiran's phantom transformed into a spear in her hand. Lung Air's Devil's Kiss had a very unique appearance. It was neither a saber nor a sword, but a pink handguard that covered Lung Air's hand. The blade was about a foot long, with 3 arcs that glowed with a pink light. Although Air could not see the blade, the moment it appeared in her hand, she could feel a cold energy seal around her body. Clearly, it had some kind of special ability. A faint light flashed in Chiyu's eyes, and his body quickly floated backwards. The Devil's Kiss seemed to be able to lock down ordinary weapons, so Kiran had already turned into a long red spear in his hand. As the saying goes, an inch longer, an inch stronger. Since his opponent was using a short weapon, then he would use a long weapon to restrain him. With a shake of his right hand, Kiran brought with it a wave of red light that scattered towards his opponent. At this moment, Chi was completely immersed in his spear, and the energy of his attack also changed. Kiran's true fire condensed on the tip of the spear, and a dark red spear light that was about 3 inches long burst out. Although Kiran's true fire was not very strong, the 3-inch spear light was no different from a real body. The tyrannical energy brought with it a rapidly rising temperature, and it quickly collided with the Devil's Kiss in Lung Air's hand. A dense burst of energy rang out, and the battle between Chiyu and Lung Air had begun once again. Lung Air's body was constantly flashing. Previously, when Klinsman used teleportation, he would immediately attack after a single teleportation, but Lung Air did not do that. Her body was constantly flashing, and she did not use any footwork to speak of. However, every time she flashed, she would appear in a different position. Before Chiyu could block, she would already appear in a different position. Every time she appeared, her posture would also be different. Most of the time, when Lung Air appeared, it was as if Chiyu's body had voluntarily moved forward. If not for the fact that Kiran's swim was amazing enough, he would have been hit by Lung Air's continuous short-distance teleportation. Rich combat experience allowed Chiyu to always be able to shake off his spear at the last moment, just in time to block the attack of the Devil's Kiss. He realized that the Devil's Kiss was clearly the most suitable weapon for Lung Air. This was because every time Lung Air's tyrannical strength exploded, the Devil's Kiss would come into contact with his Kiran's illusion. The suction force would suddenly increase, and with the enhancement of the Devil's Kiss, the suction force would be at least 3 times stronger than before. Under such circumstances, Chiyu had no choice but to focus on protecting his energy. The spear in his hand danced in an airtight manner, and the area within a 3-zhang radius was filled with countless red shadows and the enormous energy of the Kiran's true fire. This prevented Lung Air from breaking through his defense in a short period of time. The effect of the Devil's Kiss was too strong. Chiyu knew that if the battle continued like this, his consumption would definitely be much greater than Lung Air's. Even if he recovered faster than her, the battle would still enter a stalemate, which was disadvantageous to him. Lung Air was also surprised by Chiyu's combat ability. The defense he displayed did not have any techniques to speak of, and it was all about speed. Moreover, his body coordination was excellent, and he could always swing the spear in his hand in the most dangerous moment to block the attack of the Devil's Kiss. This kind of situation made Lung Air feel a little uncomfortable. It must be known that in the process of constantly teleporting, she also consumed a certain amount of energy. On the surface, it looked like she was in a state of full attack, but she did not really have the upper hand. At this point in the battle, Lung Air was already a little impatient. Using the mental cultivation method from Hell, she forcefully suppressed her favorable impression of Chi-Yu and wholeheartedly focused on the battle. The Devil's Kiss suddenly disappeared, and her figure floated back. The two sharp blades were exchanged in one hand. Lung Air's change immediately made Chi-Yu feel his body become lighter. Seeing her like this, Chi-Yu thought that Lung Air was going to say something again. So he put the spear in his hand behind his back and looked at her. However, Lung Air's next action immediately made him nervous. The two blades were exchanged in her left hand, and Lung Air's right hand opened up to the sky. Her palm moved slightly, and suddenly, a black stream of air appeared in the shape of a vortex in the center of her palm. The huge energy aura continued to rise, and the black stream of air was like a small tornado, constantly expanding. Chi-Yu could clearly feel that the aura on Lung Air's body had changed. He knew that in a situation where she could not gain the upper hand with her moves, Lung Air had already started to use energy attacks again. Energy attacks were undoubtedly more dangerous, and the consumption was also greater. But at this moment, Chi-Yu could clearly feel that the energy Lung Air used did not seem to belong to her, but was instead filled with the negative aura of heaven and earth. The huge energy became more and more terrifying, and the pink eyes had already lost all signs of life, so calm that it was a little scary. Staring fixedly at Chi-Yu, the aura that had locked onto his body was like a thorn in Chi-Yu's back, making him feel extremely uncomfortable. Chi-Yu did not move. At this moment, he knew that he could not rashly launch an attack. Lung Air's aura was completely locked onto him. As the saying goes, pull one hair and the whole body will move, and a destructive attack would immediately come. After all, the two of them were fighting for the first time, so they were not familiar with each other. Chi-Yu also did not know what ability Lung Air was going to use, but at this moment he felt a little strange, so he did not dare to be careless. Kirin returned to his body and floated in the air. Chi-Yu began the second stage of Kirin's origin mutation. Now, he needed more power to give himself more opportunities to adapt. A huge light shadow of Kirin appeared, emitting a strong light. It had a black body, silver fur, and a two-colored horn on its head, all of which exuded a tyrannical aura of a king of Kirin. After the shadow of Kirin appeared, it instantly rushed to where Chi-Yu was, completely wrapped around him, and began to fuse with him. The black scales quickly changed, and the original single layer of scales turned into 3 layers of composite scales, layer by layer, protecting each other. The whole body suddenly swelled up, and then a pair of black Kirin wings instantly rushed out from the scales, spreading to both sides of its body. The Kirin pearl on its chest seemed to have swelled up a little, and the entire Kirin pearl had completely turned silver. On the black Kirin armor, it was particularly eye-catching. The silver halo expanded outwards like a breastplate. The Kirin armor on its shoulder also turned into 3 layers, layer by layer, extending downwards. At the same time, a circle of special-shaped scales stood up on Chi-Yu's neck, like the collar of a shirt protecting his neck. The original silver patterns on Kirin's arm gradually expanded, and a completely silver picture of Kirin appeared on his right arm. The position of the picture of Kirin's head was right between his thumb and index finger, and layers of twisted light constantly surrounded Chi-Yu's arm, trembling slightly. The black wings formed by the condensed black scales gently flapped on its back. Covered in the Kirin armor, Chi-Yu's figure looked even more burly than before. The long silver hair on his head fluttered in the wind, and under the influence of his aura, he quietly floated there, waiting for Lung Air to attack him. At this moment, a strange smile suddenly appeared on Lung Air's face. Without any warning, the black tornado on her hand suddenly disappeared, and the huge energy aura that had gathered earlier disappeared in an instant, causing a feeling of a vacuum to appear in the air. Chi Yu's aura and spiritual power were completely focused on the tornado, and when the tornado suddenly disappeared, his body could not help but tremble. Under the influence of the aura, his body uncontrollably lunged towards Lung Air, and he felt as if the energy in his body was about to be extracted. Although he forcibly controlled it, the pain at that moment made Chi Yu roar. The thundercloud force in his body was completely disrupted by this sudden change, and all kinds of energy were no longer flowing smoothly. The energy aura in his body suddenly became complicated, as if it could change at any time. Lung Air did not move. She just stood there quietly, a strange expression on her face. Seeing Chi Yu's figure lunging towards her, she separated her hands, and the devil's kiss in her hands merged into one. Under the cover of the pink light, a pink longsword appeared in her hands. She swung the longsword upwards, and suddenly, a pink crescent slash cut through the air. The sound of the air being torn was so ear-piercing that it not only tore through the air, but also seemed to tear through the entire space. Chi Yu clearly felt a huge pressure on both sides of his body, squeezing his body. Although it was not to the extent that he could not move, his speed was greatly restricted. The pink crescent slash reached him in almost an instant, and the tyrannical energy undulations and the strange energy aura that was like a black hole caused him to spit out blood. At this moment, Chi Yu knew that he could no longer hold back, or else he would end up in a miserable state. The energy in his body was in a chaotic state, and at this moment, he could not even use 50% of his strength. If he allowed Lung Air's attack to reach him, then even if he did not die, he would definitely be seriously injured. The energy in his body flowed, and Chi Yu's body suddenly turned in midair. The black wings on his back suddenly spread open, forcibly reducing the speed of his forward flight by more than half, causing his body to stop for a moment. At the same time, a silver light shone, followed by a surging golden light. The golden light flashed, using its own energy. Updated by Tao Taro. With the help of the energy that Chi Yu barely gathered, it brought along a golden light and met the pink crescent slash head-on. The energy of the Devil's Kiss was extremely terrifying. Once it encountered an energy collision, it would first devour as much energy as possible in an instant, and then break through it. It also had the support of Hell's Princess Lung Air's energy, so it could naturally display a greater effect. However, there was still a limit to its devouring ability. When the pink energy met the incomparably sharp golden light, there was an ear-piercing sound of friction in midair. Then, the golden light and the pink light slid past each other. The pink light had already split into two, drifting away from both sides of Chi Yu's body. However, the golden light still surged out in its original path. In terms of sharpness, how could it compare to the Xianyuan sword? Yes, at this critical moment, Chi Yu finally took out his godly weapon. However, because the energy released by the Xianyuan sword was blocked, it could not lock onto Lung Air's body. However, this was also what Chi Yu wanted to see. With a teleportation, Lung Air had already escaped from the energy released by the Xianyuan sword. A faint light flickered. Holding the Xianyuan sword in his right hand, Chi Yu quietly looked at Lung Air, who appeared not far away. Perhaps because the sharp aura of the Xianyuan sword scared her. After Lung Air used teleportation to appear, she did not chase after Chi Yu. Instead, she appeared in the air tens of meters away from him. A pair of beautiful eyes stared firmly at the Xianyuan sword in Chi Yu's hand. Chi Yu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He did not expect Lung Air to have such a variety of tactics. He could not help but ask doubtfully, "How did you do it? How could you suddenly make such a large amount of energy disappear? Moreover, it produced a gravitational field, causing my body to unconsciously move closer to you." Lung Air looked at Chi Yu in a daze. She obviously did not expect that under such circumstances, Chi Yu could actually escape from the range of her energy control so quickly. Not only that, he could even launch a counterattack against her. One had to know that among the enemies she had fought in the past, every time she used this fighting method, most of the enemies would vomit blood without her attack. Coupled with the sharpness of her Devil's Kiss, the battle could be directly ended. Because that was not real energy at all. Chiyu, it seems that I really have to look at you in a different light. Under such circumstances, you were still able to break free from my energy shroud. You could be my opponent. Lung'er looked at the Xianyuan sword in Chiyu's hand. Although Chiyu did not say it, she had seen this divine sword appear a few times. She understood that it must be a super divine weapon that belonged to the East. Otherwise, it would not have been able to deal with the sure kill attack of her devil's kiss in such a way. In fact, Chiyu knew his difficulties. Although he seemed to have easily solved the problem at the critical moment, it was not easy for him to deal with it in this world. The energy in his body was misused, causing him to have to use a large amount of spiritual power to regain control of the energy. And the moment he lost control, just now, his body had already suffered a certain amount of damage. And the intense stimulation could only be withstood by his body with the source of nature. If it was someone else, the result would indeed be the same as Lung'er expected. The meridians that had been fully modified by the energy of nature reflected the best effect at this time, so he could maintain his calm on the surface. At the very least, Lung'er could not see that his internal condition was actually very bad just by looking at it with her eyes. So that's how it is. However, you are indeed very powerful to be able to make the mimicry energy so realistic. Even I cannot see it. She could not help but sigh. In terms of use of energy, Lung'er was even better than him. Lung'er said indifferently, "That's because you do not understand the characteristics of our ability in the infernal realm. When I attacked you just now, the energy I used was not completely mimicry. In fact, it's not completely a mimicry. A small part of it is formed by directly absorbing the various negative energies of your world. Under the control of my own energy, I can make it attack you, but I can also make it suddenly dissipate, creating a feeling of weightlessness for you." Chiyu nodded and said, "So that's how it is. Lung'er, do you think there's a point in us fighting like this? Although we are fated to not be partners, I am very willing to treat you as a friend." A trace of anger appeared in Lung'er's eyes. Hearing Chiyu's words, she could not help but think of the scene when she was rejected. "If we are not husband and wife, then we are enemies. Stop talking nonsense. Take this." Lung'er moved again. This time, what Chiyu saw was a long line of afterimages. With the experience of fighting her before, Chiyu knew that Lung'er's strength was far greater than he had imagined. Therefore, he did not dare to be careless. Seeing the afterimages coming towards him, he quickly raised the Xianyuan sword in front of him. He didn't launch an attack, but the energy of the Qilin's origin surged into the Xianyuan sword. Suddenly, an incomparably sharp aura poured out of the Xianyuan sword, and the enormous energy aura immediately caused the afterimage that was coming at him to stagnate. That was the Xianyuan sword, the most offensive ancient divine weapon of the East, the Xianyuan sword. Lung'er raised the devil's kiss in her hand, and all the afterimages suddenly disappeared. In the next moment, her body appeared beside Chiyu, the devil's kiss carrying a 3-foot-long pink light slashing towards Chiyu's shoulder. Chiyu did not move at first. Hesitating about Lung'er's teleportation ability, he could only choose to stay still. Although this was relatively passive, Chiyu believed that with his quick reaction ability, he could still deal with it. The source of nature was indeed the power of nature, and Chiyu just raised his water thundercloud force to the 8-cloud level before coming here. His self-healing ability was almost unparalleled. Although the energy in his body was consumed due to the collision between the two special abilities, with the fusion of these two special abilities, his meridians had completely recovered under the nourishment, and the energy in his body had also returned to its original position. Kirin's 2 plums behind him quickly absorbed the energy molecules in the air, quickly replenishing the energy consumed by Chiyu. Because Lung'er used her full strength in anger, the suction force of the devil's kiss increased a little, causing Chiyu's body to involuntarily tilt. This caused the time it took for the devil's kiss to slash his body to become shorter. This time, Chiyu did not dodge. He also wanted to test whether the divine weapon from the hell world was stronger or the divine weapon from the east was sharper. He used the power of his fingers and wrists. When he felt the devil's kiss approaching, he unhesitatingly placed the Xianyuan sword on his shoulder, and the huge Xianyuan sword directly welcomed the devil's kiss. With a crisp sound, Qiyu and Lung Er's bodies froze in an instant, and the huge energy completely fixed their bodies in place. The pink light flickered like a snake, and it also let out a strange sound, as if it was attracted by lightning. The Xianyuan sword and the demon's kiss were quite different in terms of size. The golden sword released a surging light, while the demon's kiss had already become somewhat dark between the pink light. The huge energy aura was able to confront the Xianyuan sword. This proved that the devil's kiss was indeed powerful. But Lung Er's heart ached to see her most beloved devil's kiss. At this moment, a third of the devil's kiss had already been pierced by Qiyu's longsword. The golden light spread from the gap, and the incomparably sharp energy passed through the devil's kiss, causing Lung Er to unconsciously feel as if she was about to be cut off. The mana in her body circulated at high speed, but could not completely neutralize the powerful sharpness. What kind of sword was that? Not only was it huge, but its attack power was also so abnormal. Even his devil's kiss was damaged by its attack. Qiyu's Xianyuan sword suddenly trembled, and the blade turned, producing a powerful force that shook Lung Er's delicate body. After this confrontation, he could not help but feel relieved. After all, in terms of quality, the Xianyuan sword was more powerful. How could something from hell compare to the Xianyuan sword that was condensed from the energy of the sun, moon, stars, mountains, rivers, and trees? Lung Er looked down at her devil's kiss. If it was a normal injury, it wouldn't have been a problem. Perhaps with her powerful strength, she would be able to repair the devil's kiss after a certain period of time. But at this moment, although the devil's kiss was separated from the Xianyuan sword, the gap was still flickering with golden light. This could only prove one thing. The sharpness of the Xianyuan sword had already damaged the soul of the devil's kiss. Although it did not mean that it could not be repaired, it was easier said than done. A powerful aura surged continuously. This time, Lung Er was truly angry. When she was young, when she just started cultivating, Satan gave this devil's kiss to her. In a sense, the reason why Lung Er could have her current strength was because the devil's kiss had a great influence on her. This could be seen from the fact that the characteristics of the energy she possessed were very similar to the devil's kiss. In Lung Er's heart, the devil's kiss was her best friend and companion. No matter what, it would always accompany her quietly. However, just now, her devil's kiss was actually damaged by Qiyu, and it was an extremely heavy injury. Such a blow, coupled with Qiyu's repeated rejections, caused Lung Er's emotions that truly belonged to hell to appear in her heart. She did not say anything, but the cold glint in her eyes told Qiyu many things. A layer of cold light appeared in her pink eyes, and a black aura appeared behind Lung Er. As it expanded rapidly, it became like a black hole. An incomparably huge amount of energy surged towards Lung Er's body. The energy that was full of evil aura made Qiyu's heart sink. At this moment, Lung Er's body began to change. The first thing that changed was the long pink hair on her head. It wasn't her hair that changed, but on top of Lung Er's head, two small curved horns grew on both sides, which looked very cute. The pink light in her eyes became deeper than before. Although it was not the terrifying blood-red color, at this moment, it was easy to associate it with bloodthirstiness. A huge amount of dark energy continued to condense in her body, and Lung Er's demon physique also revealed itself at this time. A pair of black wings spread out behind her, and the dazzling black light had a layer of purple aura at the edge, allowing Qiyu to see it clearly in the darkness. The appearance of the pair of wings immediately caused Lung Er's aura to change dramatically. Her delicate body seemed to become more slender, and her entire body was constantly enlarging according to the proportion. Her height actually expanded from about 1.7 meters to nearly 2.5 meters. Although this did not affect her beauty, the pressure that it brought to Qiyu was completely different. Immediately afterward, along with the appearance of the first pair of wings, a second pair of the same wings also appeared quietly. A huge amount of dark energy caused a circle of purple ripples to appear around the circular black hole behind her. Lung Air slowly closed her eyes, and a trace of enjoyment appeared on her pretty face. She seemed to like this dark energy very much. Under the influence of the huge energy, a tyrannical light appeared in Lung Air's eyes. She looked up to the sky and let out a long roar. The four wings on her back completely spread out, and under the four wings that had already appeared, two more wings instantly appeared. 6 black wings completely revealed the purest dark energy. Compared to the terrifying Demon King, the aura that her 6 wings gave Chi-Yu was different. With these 6 wings, Lung Air's strength seemed to have doubled in an instant, and the demon's kiss in her hand also turned black under the effect of the 6 wings on her back. The huge energy aura quickly condensed, and the black hole behind her gradually disappeared. However, the 6-winged Lung Air's gaze towards Chi-Yu was completely different. There was even a trace of a cruel light at the corner of her mouth as she looked at Chi-Yu. Suddenly, something occurred to Chi-Yu. The feeling that Lung Air gave him now was very familiar. With a flash of inspiration, he understood why this feeling was so familiar to him. He blurted out, "Demonization?" Lung Air looked at Chi-Yu coldly, and the light in her eyes was completely bloodthirsty. Yes, at the same time that the 6-winged wings appeared, she reached the state of demonization due to the anger in her heart. As an expert of the Hell faction, her demonization was completely different from Chi-Yu's demonization. Chi-Yu's demonization would cause his mentality to lose balance, and his brain would also become sluggish. He only wanted to completely destroy the enemy in front of him. Tautaro Speed Update. Chapter 246. Demonification. So you people who belong to the infernal realm can demonify. Lung Air, when I was in London, I was demonized as well. Does that have anything to do with you? Chi-Yu asked. Lung Air slowly nodded her head. That's right. In order to help you recover your strength, and also because of my recognition of you, I shed my tears in the depths of your heart. The tears of a demon. It can make your strength even more explosive when it erupts. At the same time, it can also bring you into the realm of demonification when you are completely enraged. Hearing Lung Air's explanation, Chi-Yu couldn't help but come to a realization. No wonder Grandmaster Zagru once said that there was an evil energy in the depths of his heart, and it was an extremely pure, evil energy. So it was actually Lung Air's tears. He hadn't expected this outcome, but it was all in the past now. Facing the 6-winged Lung Air, he had no choice but to focus. Even he himself did not know if he could defeat Lung Air in her current state. Lung Air stared coldly at Chi-Yu. Give up resisting. Because resistance is meaningless to you, I, who possess the royal bloodline of the infernal realm. My 6 wings are 5 times stronger than the Dreadlord's. You have no chance at all. Don't tell me you don't need to use your 4 wings now. Since that's the case, you can go and die. This time, Lung Air did not use instant teleportation again. She floated proudly in the distance, the demon's kiss in her hand creating a black whirlwind that swept directly towards Chi-Yu's body. The huge energy fluctuations caused the air to solidify. In front of dark energy, it seemed that all other energy elements suffered a destructive blow, causing Chi-Yu to be unable to absorb the energy he wanted from the air for a moment. Sensing the massive energy fluctuations, Chi-Yu knew that it was impossible. Lung Air would no longer be merciful to him. However, if Lung Air could do this, how could he, who owed her a favor, do the same? He retreated swiftly. The golden wings that represented the golden-winged eagle floated out. In order to further increase his defense, the red rhombus-shaped scales on Chi-Yu's forehead lit up. Scorching hot air was suddenly released, and under the tremendous energy, the red scales on Chi-Yu's forehead lit up. Chi-Yu's Kirin armor was instantly covered in a layer of fiery red. Yes, Kirin Chi appeared. The Kirin orb had also turned red due to the appearance of the Kirin red. The huge energy wave caused Chi-Yu's ability to lean towards his own fire attribute, Thundercloud Force. The scorching airflow spread. The Xianyuan sword in his hand was raised high in the air. Chi-Yu used the wings on his back to continuously retreat, increasing the distance between him and Lung Air. The darkness energy released by Lung Air no longer seemed to be affected by distance. The incomparably viscous darkness energy reached Chi Yu's body in an instant, frantically engulfing him. Ignoring the sharpness of the Xianyuan sword, the dark energy formed a huge dark tornado with Chi Yu as the center. The moment the black tornado took shape, a huge amount of energy filled with destructive energy appeared. The moment the black tornado formed, it immediately turned into countless sharp blades from the dark world, cutting at Chi Yu's body. This time, there was no longer the suction energy from before. Instead, it was a pure attack. This was the first time Chi Yu faced such pure dark energy. The huge energy fluctuations immediately caused his body to feel sluggish. Under the impression of the dark energy, many negative emotions subconsciously appeared in his mind. Although this did not completely affect his fighting strength, it still caused his body to become sluggish. A faint light flickered, and the light in Chi Yu's eyes became stronger. A silver light appeared around his body without warning. Under Chi Yu's deliberate control, the silver light flowed and actually broke through the dark tornado, enveloping the entire dark airflow. A strange scene appeared. Within the silver light, the dark energy that was originally attacking Chi Yu and making ear-piercing sounds as it rubbed against the Kirin red on his body suddenly disappeared. The area enveloped by the silver light turned into an energy vacuum. Lung Air looked at the scene in front of her and could not help but be surprised. This is the power of a domain. You didn't seem to use it the last time. Energy immunity silver dragon cover. That's right, it was the power of a domain. It had been a while since Chi Yu used this silver dragon cover domain, but he was not worried that there would be any problems when he used it. He had not used it recently because Chi Yu's own energy was extremely strong. Once he used this domain, not only could he neutralize his opponent's energy, but he could also make his own energy unable to be used. However, in the face of Lung Air's tyrannical attack, if he relied on the sharp edge of the Xianyuan sword to forcibly break through, it would definitely consume a lot of his own energy. At the same time, under the influence of the dark energy, there was a possibility that he would be attacked by Lung Air. After weighing the pros and cons, Chi Yu used the silver dragon cover, and the energy immunity effect immediately helped him get through the crisis. The silver light disappeared, and Chi Yu appeared in front of Lung Air with the same fiery red light. However, the Xianyuan sword in his hand lit up, and the golden light became even more intense under the red light. To Chi Yu's surprise, a milky white light suddenly appeared on his left wrist. With the help of the milky white light, the dark energy in the air was actually dispersed to a certain extent. He subconsciously looked at his wrist, and the milky white light that was emitting was actually the Serira bead. Ever since he became stronger, Chi Yu rarely paid attention to the benefits that the Serira bead brought to him. When he was demonized, the Serira bead did not exhibit its effects. In fact, what Chi Yu did not know was that the Serira bead contained the Buddhist relics left behind by more than 10 senior monks. The pure Buddhist energy was the nemesis of any evil aura. Furthermore, it wasn't because the relic beads hadn't been able to unleash their full potential, but because the Buddhist energy contained within the relic beads wasn't something that could be easily revealed. Chi Yu had only been helped by the tiny bit of Buddhist energy on the surface. This point, even Zagru only discovered it later. Before Zagru was ready to return to Tibet, he deliberately used his living relic to help Chi Yu completely activate the Buddhist energy of the Serira bead. Therefore, when he was besieged by the dark energy filled with evil aura, the Serira bead's effect naturally appeared. A faint divine light appeared in Chi Yu's eyes. Feeling the strong rejection of the Buddhist energy of the Serira bead against the dark energy, he could not help but reveal a faint smile. With the Serira bead, what was there for him to be afraid of? Although the dark energy was powerful, as long as the Serira bead could protect his body, it was enough. A faint divine light flashed. The energy of the Xianyuan sword in Chi Yu's hand became more solid. Chi Yu discovered the magical effect of the Serira bead. Under the guidance of the Chi, Lung Air, who was constantly releasing dark energy, naturally also discovered it. Looking at the pure Buddhist light emitted by the Sarira bead, she could not help but frown. No wonder you are unwilling to cooperate with us. You have something that is close to the aura of light. It seems that you don't hate Yamu and the others at all, and are even cooperating with them, right? Chi shook his head. Lung Air, you misunderstand. This is not something that belongs to the West. I don't know if you've heard of Buddhism, but it's one of the most important religions in our Yanhuang Republic. Buddhism has Buddhist relics, and the bracelet I'm wearing is made from Buddhist relics. It's filled with Buddhist energy. It has a strong dispelling effect on any negative aura. With a faint smile, Chi-Yu's eyes revealed a faint divine light. He folded his hands in front of his chest and looked at Lung Air. Although he had already explained. However, he found that the dark energy released by Lung Air not only did not show any signs of decreasing, but it was also constantly increasing. It's useless to say anything. The moment I entered the demonified realm, your fate was already sealed. The 6 wings on Lung Air's back fluttered slightly. Then, the dark aura covered the sky and covered the earth. Everything in the surroundings suddenly changed. Chi-Yu had a domain-type ability. How could Lung Air not? The huge amount of dark energy changed. Chi-Yu could clearly feel that his body had entered a swamp, and the huge amount of dark energy had begun to corrode his body. The white light emitted by the Sarira bead became stronger, but it was not enough to block the huge amount of dark energy. Lung Air's body and her aura had completely disappeared, so Chi-Yu did not know which direction to attack. Lung Air's voice came from all directions, entering the dark swamp. You will be swallowed by the darkness. I don't want to see you die, so let the darkness here swallow you. Chi-Yu, this is one of my strongest domains. From now on, everything between you and me will completely disappear. Hearing Lung Air's words, Chi-Yu could not help but be stunned. Although her voice was very cold, Chi-Yu could hear a trace of loneliness in it. It seemed that even in the demonified realm, she did not really want to destroy him. However, Chi-Yu obviously did not have much time to think about this. Facing this dark swamp domain, he knew what he had to do. The milky white light emitted by the Sarira bead enveloped Chi-Yu's body completely, so that the dark energy outside could not invade his body for the time being. However, Chi-Yu could clearly feel that the boundless dark energy outside the Sarira bead was so powerful that it was completely destructive and engulfing. What surprised Chi-Yu even more was that other than the energy on the Sarira bead, whether it was the energy of his Kirin's origin or the fire attribute Kirin's thundercloud force, none of them had any ability to resist the purest dark energy outside. Could it be that the dark energy was immune to other types of energy? Could the energy immunity Silver Dragon shield dissolve the energy outside? Chi did not know. When he was about to use the Silver Dragon shield, he was shocked to discover a problem. In this dark swamp domain, all of his domain abilities could not be used. Not only could the energy immunity Silver Dragon shield not be used, but even his shapeless Big Dipper realm technique could not be summoned through Kirin's secret. This was the first time that Chi-Yu encountered such a situation. At this moment, as he felt the dark energy outside becoming stronger and stronger, his heart sank. Chi-Yu understood that this time, Lung Air was indeed prepared to destroy him, and had no intention of showing any mercy at all. This dark swamp domain seemed to be very easy for her to cast, but now it seemed that it was so powerful that it was definitely a super domain. Once the Buddhist power of the Sarira bead disappeared, he could only rely on his own energy to resist. In this case, the dark energy was almost immune to all of his energy. In this case, how could he survive in this dark swamp domain? Even if he could temporarily survive in this domain, after fusing with a few types of energy, the energy was ultimately limited. The biggest problem in this dark swamp domain was that he couldn't get any energy to replenish himself. Apart from the dark aura, there were no energy molecules of any other attributes. How could it be easy to break out of this place? A faint light flickered, and Chi-Yu knew that he had encountered the biggest problem. However, it was fortunate that he had the Buddhist power of the Sarira bead, which gave him time to think. The only thing he could rely on now was the Xianyuan sword in his hand. The Xianyuan sword was known as the destroyer of domains. If he wanted to rush out of this dark swamp, he could only rely on its power. As he thought of this, the light on his body gradually brightened. Under his full support, the energy of the Xianyuan sword continued to increase. Qiyu did not use the cosmic crimson gold armor. This was because, without the help of external energy, if he hastily used the cosmic crimson gold armor, even though he could complete the transformation, it would consume too much energy. Now, he was only facing a domain and not Longyear. Even if he could get out of this place, it did not mean that he could defeat Longyear. Therefore, after weighing the pros and cons, Qiyu decided to use his current state to activate the powerful attack of the Xianyuan sword. A strong light flashed, and Qiyu took a deep breath. A faint layer of golden light appeared on his body. The light of the sun, moon, and stars on the Xianyuan sword in his hand suddenly lit up. The strong light was so dazzling that even the Buddhist light around his body could not withstand it. With the faint light flashing, Qiyu raised the Xianyuan sword in front of him and poured all the energy in his body into it. Under the combined effect of the thundercloud force, the sharpness of the Xianyuan sword became stronger and stronger. As the owner of the Xianyuan sword, Qiyu was completely immersed in the divine power of the Xianyuan sword. The giant sword, which was filled with benevolent energy, seemed to have truly become a part of his body. It was connected to his body through his hands. Raising both hands high into the air, the Xianyuan sword erupted with a golden light that enveloped Qiyu's entire body, dyeing him golden. The Xianyuan divine sword, which was filled with a divine aura, emitted a sharp aura in all directions, forcibly avoiding a portion of the dark swamp. This was the power of a divine weapon that did not belong to any elemental attribute. The sharp energy was not something that dark energy could resist. Qiyu understood that although the energy of the Xianyuan sword was able to resist the dark swamp as he had expected, this was a domain after all. As someone who also possessed a domain, he knew that this was a domain. Although the power of a domain depended on the energy of the user, relatively speaking, because of the various characteristics of a domain, the energy consumed by the user was definitely much less than that of the person trapped in the domain. Therefore, he had to leave this domain in the shortest time possible. Only then could he absorb enough energy from the air with his source of nature constitution. Therefore, he had to leave this domain in the shortest time possible. That way, he would be able to absorb enough energy molecules of various attributes from the air again with his source of nature constitution. Therefore, after increasing the energy of the Xianyuan sword, Qiyu floated up without hesitation. He spread the 4 wings on his back and shouted, "Unity of heaven and man." The first of the Xianyuan 8 laws was activated with the support of the 7-cloud energy in his body. Relying on his tyrannical strength, Qiyu did not use the ultimate transformation this time. He used the complete form of unity of heaven and man. His figure disappeared. To be precise, he was completely swallowed by the golden light emitted by the Xianyuan sword. At this moment, there was no distinction between the sword and the person. The huge energy aura caused the Xianyuan sword to suddenly explode. The sword was more than 10 meters long and carried an incomparably huge amount of energy. It suddenly slashed in a direction. With the explosion of the energy of the Xianyuan sword, the dark energy in the dark swamp was like ice and snow under the effect of the huge amount of energy. No matter how difficult it was to deal with this viscous swamp energy, it could not stop the sharpness of the Xianyuan sword. The huge amount of energy penetrated straight through. The power of the Xianyuan sword as a domain killer was fully displayed at this moment. An ear-piercing sound rang out. Qiyu, who was in the unity of God and sword state, suddenly felt the surroundings lighten. All the pressure disappeared completely. He almost subconsciously quickly absorbed as much of the energy that he had fused with the Xianyuan sword into his body, minimizing the loss of energy in his body. The golden light disappeared, and Qiyu returned to his original form. He floated above the Tianxiang mountain. Longyear looked at Qiyu in shock. She clearly did not expect that the godly weapon in Qiyu's hands could not only destroy her devil's kiss, but also have the ability to break through domains. The light in her eyes was a little shocked. The dark energy on her body was also not as dense as before. Using her most powerful domain had a huge impact on her body, causing her own energy to be greatly weakened. A faint light flashed, and a hint of coldness appeared in Chi-Yu's eyes. Lung Air already had the intention to kill him, so he could not just wait for death. The Xianyuan sword was pointed diagonally towards the ground. As it absorbed the energy in the air, Chi-Yu stared at Lung Air, waiting for her next attack. Lung Air looked at Chi-Yu and snorted coldly. "Fine, you." Lung Air only said the word "you" before she stopped. Her delicate body turned slightly, and a huge amount of energy swept out once again. This time, the energy gathered towards the devil's kiss in her hand. The illusory figure had 3 pairs of black wings and was dyed with a layer of faint purple light. It looked extremely dazzling, but it was this dazzling figure that was about to bring Chi-Yu the threat of death. Lung Air suddenly slashed out with the devil's kiss in her hand, and a huge amount of energy condensed into a black light in the air. The edges of the light were dark purple, and each of them was not aimed at Chi-Yu's body. However, when the energy was completely released, Chi-Yu could clearly feel that these strange black lights' final destination was his body. The battle had already reached this point, and both Chi-Yu and Lung Air had suffered a lot of physical exhaustion. At this moment, the two of them were completely focused on each other, and Chi-Yu could not hold back anymore, at least not now. Lung Air's attack and the tyrannical dark energy seemed to be a huge threat to him. The golden light shone again, and Chi-Yu did not retreat. Instead, his body suddenly rushed forward, and the huge golden light transformed into a layer of golden light in his hand. With the Xianyuan sword, Chi-Yu's strength could indeed be greatly improved. At the very least, when facing the opponent's attack, with the sharpness of the Xianyuan sword, the sword light could almost ignore all the opponent's energy fluctuations. Unless one was as tyrannical as the Bull Demon King, it was almost impossible to resist the Xianyuan sword head-on. In the air, the golden and black light constantly collided. In order to save energy, Chi-Yu did not completely release the golden light, but with the huge blade of the Xianyuan sword that was more than 5 meters long, he could easily protect his body. As the golden light on the sword continued to flicker, it dissolved Lung Air's attacks one by one, and Chi-Yu's body was getting closer and closer to Lung Air. A faint light flickered, and Lung Air watched as Chi-Yu gradually approached her, but she did not panic at all. Just then, the golden light suddenly shone. When Chi-Yu's Xianyuan sword was already in front of her, Lung Air suddenly put down the devil's kiss in her hand. Chi-Yu's sword was originally just a probing attack. However, when he suddenly saw that Lung Air actually gave up resisting and seemed to want to use her body to resist the sharpness of his Xianyuan sword, he could not help but panic. His strong fighting spirit suddenly disappeared, and in its place was panic. No one knew how terrifying the Xianyuan sword's sharpness was more than him. Once it slashed Lung Air's body, whether she was a god or a demon, there would only be one result. This situation was definitely not what Chi-Yu wanted to see. What made Chi-Yu even more surprised was that Lung Air not only put down the devil's kiss in her hand. At the same time, she completely withdrew the dark energy that her body emitted. Under such circumstances, her body seemed so fragile. The cold, killing intent in her eyes disappeared completely, and Lung Air's moving pink eyes were filled with sadness as she looked at Chi-Yu. At this moment, looking at Lung Air's sad eyes in the blink of an eye, Chi-Yu seemed to see when Ting Hu sacrificed herself for him. Without any hesitation, when the golden sword was about to slash Lung Air's body, Chi-Yu forcibly pulled back the Xianyuan sword. Even if doing so would cause damage to his body due to the recoil of energy, Chi-Yu did not hesitate to do so. He did not want to see Lung Air die in front of him. The golden light retracted, and the Xianyuan sword was thrown to the side by Chi-Yu with all his strength. At this moment, Lung Air, who was filled with sadness, suddenly became a little blurred. A slender hand appeared in front of Lung Air's chest. Before Chi-Yu could react, the slender hand had already landed on Chi-Yu's chest. With a loud bang, Yu's body was sent flying. His tall body drew a beautiful parabola in the air as he spat out blood. As soon as the dark energy entered his body, it immediately erupted without reservation. Although he had the double defense of Kirin Red and Kirin Armor, it was not enough to stop the six-winged Langaire's palm. As his body slid in the air, the heart-wrenching pain spread to every inch of his body. Although Yu could not see Langaire's situation because of his body's shape, his mental power clearly captured that Langaire, who was almost cut in half by his sword, had disappeared. The real Langaire had quietly appeared behind him. Mimicry could not only mimic energy, but could also mimic any living creature. In the face of Langaire's special ability, Yu had once again fallen for it. Furthermore, he had suffered heavy injuries due to his own carelessness. The meridians in his body had been greatly damaged by Langaire's tyrannical palm. It seemed that he was still too soft-hearted. Yu could not help but sigh in his heart. However, he did not regret it this time. At this moment, Yu was filled with joy. Although his body had been severely injured by Langaire's tyrannical palm attack, his origin of nature's energy had reached a terrifying level. With the help of the Water Thundercloud Force, his origin of nature's self-healing ability had reached an extremely terrifying level. On the surface, his body seemed to have suffered great damage, and even Kirin's body had terrifying cracks. However, at this moment, the energy in his body was circulating crazily. Kirin's marrow cleansing and tendon-changing technique, combined with the energy of the origin of nature, was healing his internal injuries at an extremely terrifying speed. The enormous energy and tyrannical healing caused the pain in Yu's body to continuously decrease. He was now completely able to control his body to stabilize in the air. However, Yu did not do so because he did not want to continue fighting with Langaire. Although Langaire had used his feelings to attack him, Yu did not really hate her. After all, compared to Yamu, at least Langaire had saved his life before. Therefore, Yu's body that was gliding in the air directly fell down the mountain. Due to gravity, the speed of his descent continued to increase. Langaire floated in the air, still maintaining the appearance when she launched the palm attack. There was a strange glint in her rose-red eyes. Her previous attack naturally had a purpose, which was to make Yu suddenly launch a sneak attack when he thought that he had hit her. In order to complete the sneak attack, she even kept her demon's kiss in her body after transforming into a phantom. In this way, she could completely make the dark aura around her disappear in the shortest time. It would also have a more confusing effect. Originally, Langaire did not expect that she could directly injure Yu with her mimicry ability. She only hoped to gain the upper hand and then launch a storm of attacks on Yu. After all, the Xianyuan sword in Yu's hand also posed a great threat to her. However, as the Princess of Hell, Langaire never expected that Yu would actually retract the Xianyuan sword at the last moment, and because he retracted the long sword that was slashing at her phantom, she hit him in the chest. Although Kirin Red brought a certain amount of recoil, Langaire was too familiar with her ability. Even if this attack was not enough to destroy Yu, it could at least severely injure him. As long as she continued to pursue him, she had some confidence in destroying him. However, Yu's action of retracting the Xianyuan sword was deeply imprinted in Langaire's mind at this moment. She clearly felt that something in the depths of her heart seemed to have been touched. He didn't want to hurt me, and it was because he didn't want to hurt me that he received my powerful attack. Although I'm stronger than him in terms of overall strength, his sword already gives him the strength to contend with me. However, at the critical moment of the battle, he gave up attacking me just because he was afraid of hurting me. Seeing Yu's body floating in the air, Langaire could not bear to chase after him and hit him again. She was already at a loss at this time. What should I do? Tautaro updated the text version immediately. Chapter 247. Just as Langaire was hesitating, a low voice suddenly rang out beside her. Your Highness, now is not the time to feel pity. As the Princess of Hell, you must make the right decision. Langaire was startled by the sudden voice. Ah, it's you, but should I really kill him now? You saw for yourself. If it wasn't for the fear of hurting me, I wouldn't have been able to obtain the saint energy so easily. I'm afraid the final outcome is hard to say. No, Your Highness, you must make a choice. If you choose to let him go, then in the future, we may very well have to face a powerful enemy. In the east of this plain, there are many mysterious things, and these mysteries may very well become the biggest obstacle to us conquering the whole world in the future. As the Princess of Hell, as the only daughter of His Majesty Satan, you must not be soft-hearted because of a human. Since he is unwilling to submit to us, then the only ending for him is death. Lung-Air was silent. Her pink long hair seemed to have lost its luster. Her big, gentle eyes constantly flashed with a complicated light. For a moment, she did not know what to do. She really could not steel her heart to make such a decision. Your Highness, could it be that you have fallen in love with that human? The low voice rang out again. Lung-Air sighed. I'm afraid so. Even in my demonized state, I actually can't steel my heart to kill him. You also know the extent of my power. Even if he doesn't die from my attack, his body will suffer a huge blow. I'm afraid that he will not be able to recover to his current level in the future. To us, he may not be a strong threat. Unless, can't we just let him go? Your Highness, you're wrong. Have you forgotten? That human has the power of nature. Nature can change everything. With the power of nature, even after taking a full blow from you, there's still hope for him to recover. Furthermore, the power of nature can also allow him to improve in the future. His potential is huge, so before he reaches a level where he can threaten us, he must be destroyed. Forget it. Since you're not willing to do it yourself, then leave this task to me. A black figure suddenly appeared behind Lung-Air. In a flash, he had already rushed down the mountain, chasing in the direction where Chi-Yu disappeared. There were 4 pairs of wings on the back of his tall figure. Unlike Lung-Air's black wings, they were real wings. Every single black feather was so clear. Lung-Air was stunned for a moment before she shouted, Don't do that. However, she knew that it was too late. No one knew better than her how powerful her guardian angel was. Even if it was just 1 second, it was enough for him to destroy the heavily injured Chi-Yu 10 times over. Warm tears flowed down her cheeks, and a huge amount of energy burst forth. But Lung-Air didn't know what she should do. He was dead. He was dead. He was still dead. At this moment, her heart was filled with painful emotions. She did not know if she was in pain because of Chi-Yu's death, or because he did not choose her. Just as Lung-Air's emotions were fluctuating because of Chi-Yu, she was shocked to find that the place where Chi-Yu had fallen suddenly lit up with a reddish-gold light. That was definitely not the energy undulations of her guardian angel. However, this energy was abnormally strong, and the huge energy aura shocked her. Although Lung-Air had 6 wings, she was actually only slightly stronger than the Terror Demon King. The 5 and 6 wings that she had just grown were not fully utilized yet. Otherwise, she would not have been unable to defeat Chi-Yu when Chi-Yu was not at his full strength. However, her guardian angel was different. He was the strongest existence in hell apart from her father, the great demon King Satan. With the power of 8 wings, he had forcibly broken through the barriers of the plane and truly arrived in this world. Lung-Air believed that apart from her father, she had never met a match for his strength. At this moment, the reddish-gold energy that appeared below seemed to be obstructing her guardian angel. How is this possible? What kind of power could obstruct her guardian angel? Lung-Air's heart was filled with questions. While Lung-Air was puzzled, Chi-Yu was in extreme pain. As his body fell, Chi-Yu's spiritual power kept track of Lung-Air's movements. As long as she did not chase after him, it meant that his plan had succeeded. Although she had slapped him, if she really had some feelings for him and did not want to hurt him, would she really kill him? Since he did not want to fight with Lung-Air, Chi-Yu had some hope in his heart. If things could be resolved in this way, it would not be a good ending. However, just as Chi-Yu's body was about to fall down the mountain, a suffocating energy suddenly appeared in midair. This energy was definitely not Lung-Air's. This was Chi-Yu's first reaction because the tyrannical degree of this energy was far beyond the level that Lung-Air could reach. The incomparably fierce, murderous aura caused every bit of energy in Chi-Yu's body to fluctuate in an instant. He had no other choice. Although his internal injuries had yet to recover, Chi-Yu had no other choice. He could only use his strongest power. When facing Lung Air, he was a little reluctant to use his strongest energy, but when facing an enemy that could truly threaten his life, Chi-Yu would not hesitate at all. A scorching hot air surged in his heart, and Chi-Yu's body was instantly enveloped in a pale, golden energy. Then, 4 wings suddenly spread out behind him, causing his falling speed to decrease rapidly. The energy from Wenting had completely fused with his body, and all the energy in his body also fused with the energy aura of the source of nature. Chi-Yu's choice was very correct, and it was also very wise. He was going to use his strongest ability. The Kirin bead turned golden, and the red rhombus on his forehead suddenly shot out a ray of red light, instantly illuminating every inch of his body. Then, the Kirin mirror flew out from his left hand, and the Kirin illusion flew out from his right hand. The 3 energies simultaneously condensed towards the Kirin bead. The huge energy instantly spread, and the 4 colors of gold, silver, red, and black were replaced by light ribbons. They enveloped Chi-Yu's body. His long red hair kept extending behind him, and only stopped when it reached his feet. Suddenly, a reddish-gold light erupted from the Kirin bead, fusing with Chi-Yu's and Wenting's energy, forming a ball of light that stopped in front of Chi-Yu's chest. There was a clanging sound, and a sturdy reddish-gold chest armor covered Chi-Yu's firm chest muscles, perfectly fusing with the original Kirin armor. Then, the chest armor separately extended up, down, and up. It extended wide shoulder armor, and down, it covered Chi-Yu's waist. The huge energy spread in an instant, and the reddish-gold light flowed to every corner of Chi-Yu's body, forming an incomparably gorgeous reddish-gold armor. Every part of Chi-Yu's body was covered perfectly, and the huge energy aura constantly spread out from his body. Blood-red veined patterns appeared on the reddish-gold armor, as though fresh blood was flowing within it. A pair of reddish-gold wings suddenly spread out from Chi-Yu's back. The wings were as big as before, but the reddish-gold light shining on them was extraordinarily bright. Every reddish-gold feather had a clear pattern, and the enormous energy aura spread out in an instant. However, it was not over yet. At the same time that the reddish-gold wings appeared, a layer of dark red light suddenly lit up behind Chi-Yu. That was the energy aura of Kirin hidden. Then, the dark red light turned into a pair of dark red wings, appearing below the reddish-gold wings. Together with the black wings that Kirin armor's second stage mutation, there were a total of 3 pairs of 6 wings on his back, extending outwards. The top pair was the reddish-gold wings, and the bottom pair was the black wings. The dark red Kirin hidden's wings appeared at the bottom. A layer of reddish-gold light appeared in front of Chi-Yu, covering his face. The light of the sun, moon, and stars shone from his body, bringing with it layers of light and shadow, and merged into the reddish-gold armor. Suddenly, the blood-red patterns on the reddish-gold armor began to flow, and on the smooth surface of the armor, images of the sun, moon, and stars appeared. Kirin's shadow disappeared. After Chi-Yu summoned the lunisolar starry red-golden armor, the power he used was not just Kirin's energy. After the fusion, the power increased several times. The Xianyuan sword in his hand flashed, and he directly slashed at the position in the air that made him feel suffocated. The huge energy light wave also lit up the valley where he was falling. A confused voice was heard, and the dark energy suddenly changed direction. Chi-Yu, who had controlled his fall, quickly stabilized his body. Light flashed, and he took a deep breath. Chi-Yu forcibly suppressed the injuries in his body. In that short period of time, just now, although his self-healing ability was very strong, it was impossible for him to completely heal the injuries that his body had suffered in such a short period of time. After all, Lung Air was very strong. When the lunisolar starry red golden armor was used, the energy wave around his body suddenly changed. The huge energy wave caused everything around him to fluctuate. Although his combat power had been raised to the highest level, at this moment, Chi had lost the ability to heal his injuries. This was because all the energy had been completely fused after the ultimate transformation. A black figure appeared in the sky above Chi, and a pair of cold eyes stared at Chi. The huge pressure became even stronger than before. The first person that came to Chi-Yu's mind was actually Chi-Yu. The energy aura was very similar to Chi-Yu's, but it was darker than Chi-Yu's energy. However, it was not as evil. In terms of the intensity of the energy, the enemy in front of him was even stronger than Chi-Yu. As for how strong it was, Chi-Yu could not really judge. However, Chi-Yu was shocked to discover that there were 8 black wings on the back of the person who had suddenly appeared. Each feather on the black wings looked like a black crystal, shining with a dark luster. It was a tall man who looked a little familiar. He was extremely handsome, and his tall body released a huge energy wave. His whole body was covered with a layer of black aura. The armor on his body was not a full body armor, and it only protected a few important parts. The black armor carried a faint energy aura. Although it was not strong, Chi could clearly feel that it was definitely compressed energy. Even the entire armor seemed to be formed by a huge amount of compressed energy. The 8 wings on his back were too dazzling for Chi-Yu. The strong energy oppressed Chi-Yu's body. Even though he had transformed into the cosmic crimson gold armor, Chi-Yu still did not have any advantage against him. His aura was completely suppressed. The light in Chi-Yu's eyes shrank, and he said coldly, "You must be the guardian angel that Lung Air mentioned." The tall man with the 8 wings nodded and said calmly, "We meet again. Her Highness couldn't steal her heart to destroy you, so leave this task to me." Chi-Yu looked at him in surprise and said, "Have we met before?" The tall man said calmly, "What do you think? If not for the fact that the princess was very interested in you, do you think you could have easily reached the basement and met Her Highness?" A thought flashed through his mind. Chi-Yu immediately recalled the scene when he was in the City of Hell. At that time, after entering the steeple, he had seen a huge statue. It was through the statue that he had entered the basement and rescued Lung Air and the Emperor's Heart Snow Lotus King. "You are that statue?" Chi-Yu asked. "That's right. I am Her Highness' protector, and I will always be by her side. Anyone who wishes to harm Her Highness will have to go through me first. I had originally planned to let Her Highness gain some combat experience from you, but I didn't expect you to be so much stronger than I had imagined. Even just now, you did not use your full strength. Seeing that you once wanted to show mercy to Her Highness, I will leave your corpse intact." The light of the sun, moon, and stars on the Xianyuan sword became exceptionally clear, and the fused energy in his body began to circulate. The light in Chi-Yu's eyes turned cold. Facing such a strong opponent, the battle intent in his heart was even stronger than before. This was not Lung Air. Since he wanted to kill him, then he would see who would be the one to destroy the other. Chi-Yu's chest was still aching, and the lunisolar crimson gold armor could not last for too long. This was different from the previous battle of attrition. Right now, he needed to end this battle quickly. The crimson gold light lit up, and the 6 wings on his back spread out. In a flash, he had already appeared beside the tall man. The Xianyuan sword in his hand shone with a surging energy. As his mind power locked onto his opponent's body, the sharp energy of the Xianyuan sword also locked onto his opponent, and he immediately launched a violent attack. The powerful energy fluctuations filled Chi-Yu with confidence. However, his confidence was quickly shattered. This was because his opponent had disappeared without any warning. Moreover, it was not teleportation. To be able to escape from his attack under such circumstances, it showed how strong his opponent was. Even his mind power and the aura of the Xianyuan sword could not lock onto his opponent. Although the energy of the Xianyuan sword could not lock onto his opponent, it was due to the lack of Xuanyuan's soul and his lack of strength. Even so, his opponent's strength was enough to shock Chi-Yu. Although the 8-winged guy in front of him didn't have Chi-Yu's Pangu axe, the energy fluctuations on his body were clearly above Chi-Yu's. Even Chi Yu couldn't escape from the Xianyuan sword's lock. With a flash of light, Chi Yu instinctively pulled the Xianyuan sword in his hand to protect his chest. At that moment, an invisible energy had already enveloped his body. As if his body had been hit by a huge hammer, Chi Yu let out a muffled groan, and his body suddenly floated backwards. The 6 wings on his back shone brightly at the same time, and he used all his strength to dissolve the energy of his opponent's attack. That tall man didn't even move. He was still floating there, and the corner of his mouth revealed an indescribable light. Compared to me, your strength is really too insignificant. Your final outcome has long been decided. Chi Yu snorted coldly. Cut the crap and make your move. The reddish gold light condensed again. Chi Yu understood that in the face of the difference in energy, it was impossible for him to defeat his opponent with battle techniques. The biggest thing he could rely on now was the Xianyuan sword in his hand. All the fused energy burst forth at this moment, and a huge energy aura was released completely. He did not use the union of heaven and man. This was because he had to defeat his opponent in the shortest time possible with the least amount of energy expended. Therefore, at this moment, with the help of the solar lunar star crimson golden armor, he directly used the second art of the Xianyuan 8 laws. Meteor chases the moon. The golden light condensed in the air, and Chi Yu's body directly disappeared into the void. Countless golden shadows flickered in the air, and the huge energy light condensed rapidly. The sun, moon, and stars. At this moment, what appeared in the air was completely the golden light. Countless golden light spots covered every corner of the sky. As the second art of the Xianyuan 8 laws, Meteor chases the moon had different ways of using it. Previously, when he was facing Chi Yu used the condensed form of Meteor chases the moon. This time, he chose to use the scattered form of Meteor chases the moon. Although the attacking form was different, as it was the ability of the Xianyuan sword itself, the effect it could unleash was extremely tyrannical. The enormous energy aura was completely restrained, and the golden specks of light condensed into golden balls of light in the air. What surprised the tall man was that the golden balls of light were still filled with the sharpness of the Xianyuan sword, and at this moment, they were even more powerful. It was a few times stronger than before. There was no doubt that the Xianyuan 8 laws consumed a huge amount of energy, but at the same time, it was also the most powerful attack that the Xianyuan sword could unleash. Under the effect of that huge amount of energy, Chi Yu's attack power was raised to the limit. The huge amount of energy flickered, and the tall man's body surged with a layer of dark golden light. His entire body seemed to be made of metal, and every single energy aura was extremely tyrannical. His palms met in front of his chest, and a dark golden ball of light appeared. The ball of light did not increase in size from the moment it appeared, but the dark golden light became more and more obvious. As the huge amount of energy condensed, the 8 wings on his back automatically flapped. With every flap, the dark golden ball of light between his palms would become a little more solid. Facing the second art of the Xianyuan 8 laws, even someone as tyrannical as him could not help but have a serious expression. Sensing the reddish gold light in the valley, Lung Air floated over and saw the moment Chi Yu's figure disappeared. She could clearly feel the tyrannical energy fluctuations in the air, and her heart could not help but be shocked. Just as the tall man had said, Chi Yu did not use his full strength in the battle with her. Although she had also held back, it seemed that Chi Yu had held back even more. At least in his current state, he also had 6 wings. No wonder he was unwilling to cooperate with her. With his current strength, he seemed to be able to dominate an area. Seeing Chi Yu's strength, Lung Air was a little happy. At least this proved that she had not misjudged him. The 3 pairs of wings were reddish gold, dark red, and silver. When he had fought with her before, there seemed to be a pair of gold and a pair of black wings. The black wings seemed to have turned into the dark red pair, but the previous pair of golden wings had disappeared. Could it be that he was still holding back until now? Could it be that he also had the strength of 8 wings? Although Chi Yu had indeed hidden his strength before, at this time, Ling'er had somewhat overestimated him. Facing a peerless expert as strong as the eight-winged hell, how could Qi Yu still hold back? His opponent was so tyrannical that he had to raise all his strength to be able to barely fight against him. The golden wings in Ling'er's memory were obtained by Qi Yu when he absorbed a 10,000-year-old golden-winged eagle. It was not his real strength, but now his strength was different. The energy of the lunisolar golden armor was condensed at this time, and the 3 pairs of wings were also condensed by Qi Yu's full strength. The silver wings were Kirin's origin energy. The reddish-gold wings appeared after his energy, and when Ting's energy merged and appeared under the influence of the Xianyuan sword. As for the dark red wings, they were condensed by Kirin and all 4 types of thundercloud force in his body. No matter which pair of these 3 pairs of wings, no matter which pair, was extremely tyrannical and had great effects. They could greatly increase Qi Yu's strength. The wings from the golden-winged eagle, on the other hand, were of a much lower level. When Qi Yu's energy completely merged, it disappeared on its own. It was not that Qi Yu wanted to hide anything. Taking a step back, even if Qi Yu found a way to get it out, it would not be his real strength, and it would not be of the same level as the other 3 pairs of wings. The dark golden light in front of the tall man became stronger and stronger. At this time, the sky above Tianxiang Mountain was illuminated by the golden light. The golden light moved one by one, and with an incomparably sharp aura, they shot toward the tall man below, like meteors chasing the moon. Seeing the scene, Ling'er could not help but think of a kind of astronomical phenomenon, and that was meteor shower. That's right. The meteor shower was a method of using meteors chasing the moon. Previously, Qi Yu used the meteor chasing the moon comet against Qi Yu. In terms of overall energy, it was obvious that the meteor shower was more condensed. However, the meteor shower had the effect of superimposing attacks. Naturally, Qi Yu chose to superimpose them, because in a situation where there was no divine weapon to rely on, it was impossible for the opponent to neutralize the meteor chasing the moon attack one by one. Loud explosions sounded continuously. Every sound was extremely shocking, and a huge energy wave shot up from the center of the collision, flashing brilliantly like fireworks. The dark golden light in front of the tall man was condensed from some unknown energy. Facing the attack of the Xianyuan 8 laws, it unexpectedly blocked one meteor shower after another. After the incomparably sharp energy collided with it, it produced a huge energy wave, causing the figure of the tall man with 8 wings to flicker unceasingly. A tyrannical light flashed in Qi Yu's eyes. At this time, he was extremely shocked. The opponent was actually able to block this level of attack with just energy. Could it be that he was stronger than the Demon Bull King? At this time, the meteor chasing the moon's power had been fully displayed, and Qi Yu had no other way but to display the effect of the Xianyuan 8 laws to the limit. Every time the tall man withstood an attack from Qi Yu, his body would automatically move backwards in the air, and the expression on his face would become more serious. The dark golden light ball in front of him would also fluctuate violently under the bombardment of the meteor shower. Every time it flickered, it would become a little more scattered. Under the unceasing stacking of attacks, it seemed that it would not be able to withstand it. The tall man growled, and the light in front of his chest suddenly lit up. A dark golden cross floated out and directly imprinted on the dark golden light ball in front of his chest. The dark golden light ball seemed to originally belong to this cross. It condensed and formed at the intersection point of the cross, and at this time, the cross also changed form. A dark golden light shot up into the sky and turned into a long sword that fell into his hand. The tall man moved, and under the effect of the huge energy, the dark golden long sword in his hand continuously swung out. Every time he swung it, he could neutralize the attack brought by the meteor chasing the moon. His strength was so strong that even as an enemy, Qi Yu could not help but gasp in amazement. This guy was simply too strong, to the point of inconceivably strong. In truth, Qi Yu's judgment was somewhat wrong. The tall man did not only use energy, but he was not strong enough to rely on energy alone to block Chi Yu's attack. The dark golden light ball that he had condensed was actually the same as Lung Air's Demon's Kiss. They were both demon weapons. Hell's 3 great demon weapons. Ranked last was the Demon's Kiss, and ranked second was the Dark Demon Sword in his hand, also known as the Fallen Demon Sword. The Dark Golden Light Ball was just a precursor to the appearance of the Dark Demon Sword, and it was also the most preserved form of the Dark Demon Sword. Although Chi Yu, who had transformed into a meteor chasing the moon, was surprised that the tall man was able to block his attack using the Xianyuan 8 laws, he did not know that the tall man was already shocked and angry. He had been secretly observing the battle between Chi Yu and Lung Air, and he could clearly feel that although Chi Yu had not fully unleashed his power, there was still a huge gap between his true strength and that of the tall man's. However, just as the battle began, he was shocked to discover that Chi Yu, who had transformed into the cosmic crimson golden armor, and with the assistance of a Xianyuan sword, the attack power generated was enough to threaten him. Otherwise, he would not have used the Dark Demon Sword. He had originally wanted to deal with Chi Yu head-on, but the powerful attack of Meteor Chase's moon had left him with no chance to do so. In fact, he had no choice but to transform into the original body of the Dark Demon Sword to defend himself. On the surface, it looked as if he had withstood the attack, but in reality, his Dark Demon Sword had already suffered countless tiny wounds from the Xianyuan Sword's bombardment. In terms of quality, the Dark Demon Sword was slightly better than the Demon's Kiss, but there was still a huge gap between it and the Xianyuan Sword. It was also because of this that such a situation occurred. In the face of the meteor chasing the moon, he could no longer break free from Chi Yu's lock on him. Hence, he could not even dodge. How could the Xianyuan 8 laws be easily blocked? The golden light finally ended after the last dozen attacks, and Chi Yu's figure reappeared in midair. The tall man's face looked even colder, and the Dark Demon Sword in his hand was trembling slightly. Just like the Xianyuan Sword, this kind of super demon weapon also had a soul. In the face of the king's aura of the Xianyuan Sword, it actually felt like retreating. With a flash of light, the tall man retracted his Dark Demon Sword. At this moment, there was an additional wound on the left side of his face. At the last moment, he still could not completely block the sharpness of the Xianyuan Sword. Although the injury was not serious, it was the greatest humiliation for him. I don't know how many years it has been since anyone could hurt my body. Brat, you actually made me bleed today. Only by using the cruelest method to torture you to death can I wash away the humiliation I have suffered. The fallen angel, Lucifer, officially challenges you to the cruelest of challenges. I will not stop until one of us dies. Although Chi Yu was not very familiar with Western mythology, he had heard of the fallen angel, Lucifer. Lucifer used to be the archangel of heaven, and he was the leader of the many archangels. Later, for some unknown reason, he chose to fall and join the resistance camp, acknowledging the great demon king, Satan, as his master. And this legendary figure was actually floating in front of him at this moment. Unlike the goddess Athena, Yamu was an inherited deity. After all, she was still human. However, the Lucifer in front of him was a real demon, and a top-grade demon at that. No wonder he had such great power.